Good morning. Can everyone hear me? This is working? Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our goals and priority setting session for 2020. It's a pleasure to have you all here this morning. We have our city council members here. Thank you for joining us this morning. It's going to be a fun next couple of days. We have our city staff. We have members of the public. So hopefully many answers can be given because everybody that can answer any of our questions is actually in the room today. So we want to welcome the public as well. We're going to be going over our goals from last year, some of the successes we've had from last year, and looking into the future of how we see Santa Clara growing and developing over the next year. So we're going to have plenty of time during these next 2 days to get public presentations as well, because it's very important that we hear from the public. You can tell us how we're doing and what you'd like us to focus on in the next year. So I'm going to turn it over now to our city manager, who would like to say a few words and I think introduce some staff members before we move ahead. Thank you.
I too want to thank the City Council for allowing us to spend 2 days focused on our successes and also beginning the discussions on our challenges. And I know everyone is very busy, so the opportunity to spend 2 days on the betterment and the focused strategies around the areas that we need to concentrate on is really important to me, and it allows for us to serve the council and our residents and community much better. With that said, we also have some new resources, thanks to the City Council for allowing us to put these resources in place, that I just want to take a moment to introduce to the City Council as well as staff here. The first is Lon Peterson, our communications manager. Where are you, Lon? Lon is recently appointed, and if you recall, as part of last year's budget, you authorized the funding of a position for a communications manager. He joins us from the City of Sacramento, and after I do the second introduction, we'll just allow both to come up and just introduce themselves a little bit more. The second is Jonathan Jackson. He is a senior associate with Townsend Public Affairs, and welcome, Jonathan. And he is going to be working with the City of Santa Clara, representing the city in both the DC area on legislative issues, as well as working with the Sacramento assigned representatives to work with lobbyist issues out of Sacramento. So why don't we just have Lon say a couple words, and Jonathan as well.
Good morning. I'm really excited to be here. Actually, my first day is Monday, but I came today and I'll be here tomorrow. This is a perfect opportunity to get to know Santa Clara, the priorities, and really what's going on, and then be able to introduce myself to you guys since everybody's here. So thanks for having me early, and look forward to meeting everybody and working with everybody in Santa Clara. Thanks.
Good morning, everybody. First and foremost, go Niners. My name is Jonathan Jackson, and I am the senior associate for Townsend Public Affairs in the Washington, D.C. office. I have about 10 years of experience working in and around D.C. At all levels, anything from city and state, county, also all the way up to the White House. So my background is primarily in transportation, and so I am really excited about anything, all modes of transportation, of course, but really looking forward to working with you guys and making sure that your needs and your concerns are addressed and considered when legislators are meeting and fostering legislation in DC. So if there's anything that you need, please feel free to reach out. Casey Elliott is on his way. It's a colleague of mine. He works in the Sacramento office. Had to drop his kid off at school, so he's en route, but I wanted to just come in and just introduce you guys to TPA and just let you know that we're here for you guys.
Is that it? Okay, well, to kick us all off, we're going to start with the most important people to us, which is our public presentations. And I have a couple of cards here, but you're also welcome to come up after I call the first two people. And the first person to kick us off will be, of course, Kirk Barton. Okay, the first person will be, of course, Ren. Garen. You'd like to come up, please? It's okay, take your time, we're good. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ren. I am part of a Slice New York. I am one of 14 owners of the employee-owned cooperative, and I'm really delighted to be here today to provide to you any information that is required for this support initiative for the employee-owned cooperatives within Santa Clara County.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I know you've testified before the City Council, so you're our go-to person for worker co-ops. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Right now, Kirk Barton.
Good morning. So my name is Kirk Barton. I'm the general manager, founder of Slice New York with Ren. I just wanted to really kick this off with the inspiration that drove us to this point for us as an employee-owned business. There are a lot of engaged groups here in the area. There's a lot of engaged employees, and there's now a lot of engaged staff and council in this initiative. And I really appreciate the energy and excitement that this council and staff have had in working with the city manager's office and Robin and on her team. It's really great to see the enthusiasm of what Santa Clara wants to do for small business. And this is really a small business focus. And I hope that as a priority for this council today and tomorrow, that you really look at how this council can help small business. And I think employee ownership is one of those ways as a pathway to people that want to retire. We've seen a lot of businesses that have been closing over the years, and employee ownership is one of those ways to sell your business to your employees as a way to exit the business and to allow the current prior owner or the sole owner to retire and still leave a legacy and keep that business alive in our community. We're obviously working with the Congressman Rocana's office. Tom Pike actually said he cannot be here today, but wanted to continue to express support for this. And the legislation that he's working on is still in legislative council. It's been sitting there for a couple months now. He's anxious to pry it out of there, and so we can actually hold a roundtable and discussion and convening right here in Santa Clara. And he's really excited about doing something like that. So right now, the money that you've allocated to this initiative, small business initiative, or however you would like to phrase that, please know that it's going to be well spent with the experts, the technical assistance providers in the area. And I really hope that Santa Clara can set the stage for how cities can embrace worker ownership or employee ownership and provide a path for people to save some of our businesses here in the area, and then just provide a different way for social justice and employee equity in their business. And I'm just really excited. Anything that we can do to help, we will continue to do so, but it's been great working with the city so far. And so just know that this first $100,000 that you spent is going to be well spent. I'll be watchdogging it with these guys, and to make sure that every dollar is well allocated with your team. And hopefully it'll lead to something really exciting over the next 3 to 6 months. Thanks so much.
Kurt and Ren, thank you. Next, I have Josue Garcia. If you'd like to come forward, Josue. Yes.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council members, staff. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. My name is Josue Garcia. I represent a group of 4 construction unions, and we are called the Silicon Valley MEPs for the mechanical crafts, the electricians, the HVAC, plumbers, and fire sprinklers. We represent over 7,000 construction workers in Santa Clara County, and we are asking City Council and staff to support us on adopting a resolution that we called Responsible Construction Ordinance. The ordinance targets contractors that are part of the underground economy on issues like tax evasion, workers' comp fraud, Mayor OSHA violations, working without a constructor license, and of course, wage theft. As you know, the area is booming, the economy is booming, there's a lot of construction going on, but with construction, workers' abuses happen all the time, every day of the week, on private and on public funded projects. And this ordinance, if adopted, will cover both public and private. Right now, in every one of the city-funded projects, and even on private projects, somebody's being exploited, not to your fault. Contractors who cheat the workers are very skilled at doing it. So we think it's unfair. I have forwarded the information to city council members, the ordinance, but I also have 2 letters of support from contractors associations, not 2 contractors, but contractors associations, and I'm gonna pass it around. And the reason why they support it is because they are right now playing in an uneven playing field. If good contractors pay everything, taxes, workers' comp, pay the wages, everything, and these contractors don't pay anything, obviously, when you get bids, the bids are uneven. So they are supporting it as well. I will be here to see if you have any questions. I'm available right now, tomorrow, or after. I'm willing to meet with you. And I thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing forward that very important issue. And if you want to give to our city clerk here or over here so we can get that information. Thank you. All right, I don't have any other cards, so if anyone else would like to speak, please come forward. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor and Council and City staff. My name is Jayne. I'm very pleased that the city added a sustainability pillar to council priorities last year and that we have a new sustainability manager who will be starting February 24th. We are truly in a climate emergency. Original predictions of 3 to 5 feet of sea level rise in 2100 have been revised to 6 feet of rise by only 2050. We are already seeing some devastating effects of global heating in all the wildfires in California and Australia. This is just the beginning of what is really an existential threat. The IPCC says that we have only 11 years left to stop emissions entirely. After that, we'll need to start going carbon negative. Microsoft announced that they will be carbon negative by 2030 and will negate all their historical emissions by 2050. They will also be investing $1 billion in a climate innovation fund. I'm very pleased with the city's efforts to require that fuel cell installations use renewable natural gas. The city should now double down on its commitment to combating climate change. There should be more funding in community development to support the Climate Action Plan. Currently, staff time allocated to the Climate Action Plan is only 2 half-days by 1 planner. Other cities have volunteer green ribbon task forces to help guide their CAPs. Another issue that is near and dear to me is encouraging community engagement. As a member of several community groups, the city should make it easier and cheaper for nonprofits and residents to rent meeting spaces. We're moving on that lines, but it's taken a long time to get there. I'd love to see another senior center on the north side. I'd love to see more community gardens and rooftop gardens. The city should actively be engaging the community on plans for the 35 acres of parkland on the related City Place property. The city should also implement a public arts fee. I would like to see Santa Clara become a place that visitors come to vacation rather than only to have business meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Grizzle, you'd like to come forward, please? Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mary Grizzle. I'm with Reclaiming Our Downtown and the Parade of Champions. I'm here on behalf of Reclaiming Our Downtown and my request to have in this year's budget included to bind the option to buy Franklin Street and Washington Street. And I would like to see that on the 2020 budget. Also, I'd like to have downtown built as soon as possible. I think that should be a major priority of this council. Thank you.
Thank you. You're not asking for much, are you? Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? If so, please come forward. Okay, seeing no other public presentations, and we'll have another public presentation right before the lunch break, so just in case you want to come back again. And there's no limitations on how many you can speak at each public presentation time, so I just wanted to let everybody know that, unlike a council meeting. So I think I'll turn it over to Mr. Sean Spano to go ahead and kick us off.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Sean Spano, I'll be your facilitator today and tomorrow, and looking forward. It's a pleasure to be here. I've done the last two priority sessions, and so I'm looking forward to this one as well. So my task over the next couple minutes is just to get us organized, get the framework for today and the agenda for today. And in your packet, you do have an agenda for today, the 30th, and then you also have one for tomorrow. So today is a very open-ended, flexible day. The focus today is to give council an opportunity to discuss your strategic goals, your strategic pillars, and to align those to your vision for the community. We have a lot of time, as the mayor said, we have a lot of time allocated today to discuss those strategic goals and strategic pillars, so we're not in any rush to move through this in any quickly. And what we really want to do today is give you the opportunity to discuss what's important to you, what's important to the community, and what's important to the organization. We will start with an accomplishments warm-up exercise in just a moment, and then I will then transition us into the discussion of the strategic goals and pillars. And as you recall, I had one-on-one interviews with each of you in December. So to facilitate that discussion of goals and pillars, what I'll do is I'll summarize what I heard from you and use that as a framing, as a way to tee up the discussion. Now, you're not bound to what was just in the interview. It was really a check-in, but that's a way to jumpstart the conversation, so we're not starting from scratch. So I have some themes that I want to share with you that are collecting all the pillars and goals together. And so we'll want to look at all of them together. And then let's go through each one of you have 7 pillars, 7 goals. Let's go through each one. I'll give you the summary. What's important to you? What do you see as a success in the last year? What do you see as challenges over the last year? And where do you want to take that goal moving forward into 2020? The afternoon, as you see on the agenda, was set aside for new strategic goals and to discuss any that you might want to put on the list for discussion. Coming out of the interviews, I didn't hear that there were any new strategic goals. And they might emerge in our conversation today. And so that's a big part of our flexibility. If there are no new strategic goals, we'll see how the afternoon shapes up and how the morning shapes up. So we're going to be flexible, we're going to be adaptable. Tomorrow, and I'll set up the agenda for tomorrow. Tomorrow's a little bit more nuts and bolts. We'll start off with we'll do a recap of today, tomorrow morning, and then do a budget presentation. You'll hear from your finance director. We'll do a budget presentation. We'll also have an opportunity to hear from the 2 firms that you have contracted with to do strategic communications and branding with the city, so they will be here tomorrow. They have brief presentations, Q&A with council afterwards. And then we'll check in on the work plan, the staff work plan, council referrals, and other referrals tomorrow as well. That's more of a nuts and bolts kind of conversation. And then we've left the afternoon open for major projects tomorrow afternoon. And as we all know, at the top of the list of the major projects is related projects. So we'll start there, and then you have other major projects, and it'll be a brief staff presentation and then discussion with council. And tomorrow there'll be some flexibility as well. So how does that sound for council in terms of how we'll spend our 2 days together? Does that make sense? I will say that the agenda that was put together came out of 2 meetings with the Governance and Ethics Committee, and the sense was from the committee very strongly that council wanted time to have your discussion about your goals and pillars and vision for the community. So staff, in their responsiveness, have put together that agenda with my help, and we hope this works for you today. So with that said, then let's get into our warm-up exercise, which is accomplishments. And if I could ask Kendra to come up, and she'll record these on the flip chart, asking each of you, what if you think back over 2019, what were the 1, 2, 3 big accomplishments that you would point to and say, wow, that was an accomplishment, that was a success, we really did well in that area? So let's start with that question, and we'll hear from each of you. And then the next question after that is what you want to get out of today's session. But let's start with the accomplishments. The 1 accomplishment, the 2, no more than 3, let's limit yourself, big accomplishments over the last year. Who'd like to get us started? Mayor Gilmore.
I would start with one that was very challenging for us, which was the transformation of management of the convention center.
Okay,
I
very
think that
good.
was a huge accomplishment that took a lot of staff time, a lot of really digging in and turning that into something that is going to be financially beneficial for the city now. That, and then the second thing I would like to say, can I have two?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You can have up to 3.
To really even think of it, but the second thing is we put so many new parks online. I think we're finally now seeing the result of our park fee in terms of, turning over green spaces to the community, and I'm really proud of what we've done. And we're starting to see it, and I know we're going to see a lot more this year too.
Excellent.
As well, but turning over a lot of green space into the community, I think
Excellent.
is a huge accomplishment for us.
Great. And if some of your accomplishments align with others, that's great. And then Kendra just put a check mark next to it. Councilmember O'Neill?
Since I tend to be a process person at times, I just think like the whole conversion, like the improvement of our like procurement systems, which are playing into, the transformation of the convention center, the management of the contractors for the parks and everything. So that whole new, more using current best business practices to manage how we run procurements, whether it's convention center or the garbage contract or and expecting, all of our subcontractors like, this at the stadium to do the same thing.
Excellent. Very good. Good.
Thank you, Sean. I would like to add to that, the extended hours at the Northside Library have been a tremendously received by the community, needless to say, and the fact that it's open on Sundays now. So now it's open 7 days a week, extended hours on Mondays and Tuesdays. So that's been really important. And then along with the convention center. Also, how the city's working on creating a new model to work with the marketing of the city. Creating the DMO and working with the hotels and creating a new business model for how everybody is working together to, make Santa Clara a destination place.
Excellent. Very good. Okay. Yes. Jahal.
I would say sustainability manager hiring.
Okay.
Although we have a long way to go on that, but at least we started somewhere.
Excellent.
That's a good step going forward. And also affordability housing. Again, we have a long way to go on that, but we did approve several of those housing projects. That's a good thing.
Excellent. Very good. And both of those come up today in your goals and pillars on sustainability and housing as well. Okay. Yes, Councilmember Hardy.
Yes, I like that we are continuing to audit all our departments, and as been mentioned, the restructuring and really looking at how we're using our city facilities and our employees and our assets. I like that on communication we have the My Santa Clara app that is being used more, and that we've rolled out a new website. Excellent. And I like that we're now adding our pillars to our agenda, so we show that we're working towards our goals.
Excellent. So on your council meeting agendas now, you're listing your 7 pillars. Great. Great suggestion. That's a great addition. As I was listening to that, Kendra, I didn't hear any duplications. Did you hear any? That's really impressive. There's a lot of accomplishments there that each of you had separate accomplishments and they weren't even overlapping.
We still have one more.
And we still have one more, yes.
This one.
Okay, and it's okay if you want to duplicate any of them. Totally okay.
It's not so much duplicating, but what I see is at the 30,000-foot level was hiring a manager who took our problems and made great reform in the city. And against all odds, I mean, she's been smacked or whatever's happened, the good and the bad, it's her job. And she's brought us a long way. So that encompasses all of this, and that's due to her. And so I look at the whole reform as being a major total accomplishment.
Excellent.
And so it's overarching with all of these things, but it wouldn't be if she had not brought in the people, the resources, whatever she needed to do to accomplish these things. I think that's where we need to put the gold, the big gold star, if you want, up there, Kendra. So that's what I just, I agree with everything that's been said, but I just think that there's the 30,000-foot level, and it's our city manager. So.
Excellent, excellent. Very, very good. Okay, Deanna, did you want to add anything?
Thank you for the kind comment.
Yes.
I wanted to add that the council's discipline with financial sustainability and being strategic and working towards balancing the budget and making some hard decisions, as well as our labor agreements and working with our employees to put in place solid labor agreements. The comments that Councilmember Davis and Hardy, and really reflecting the full council, are within the context of we forget what a large organization we are. And I should have opened the session with this. We are a $5 billion asset organization alone. And it goes unnoticed because of each week we just bring to the agenda many actions.
Said 5 point what?
5.5 billion of assets between the SVP, the city assets, as well as the Levi Stadium, and $1 billion operating. And so clearly, what I forgot to say and should have is, that's why these 2 days are important. When we have collectively in this room 6.5 billion of assets and operating budget a year, it is important that we focus. And these accomplishments.
Excellent, very good. And just picking up on several of the comments that were made, the first two priority sessions were really about letting council know of the reforms, of the changes that were taking place, of the quality control that and risk mitigation efforts that were taking place, and the work that City Manager Santana was doing. And very important to bring you up to speed, the sense that it's an open discussion today and there's not a lot of staff presentation tells me that you're confident that those reforms are moving in the right direction, and now you can have a little bit of elbow room to discuss in a larger strategic way what your vision is and how you align to those goals. So I see this as a very productive step in terms of how these priority sessions have unfolded.
I just wanted to say what came out of our marketing committee and talking about this session. We had a very detailed presentation last year by our city staff from every department, and it gave us a really good idea of the state of the city at the time. So that's why we wanted to change it this year,
Right.
to have more input, because you gave us such a great base of information from last year. We didn't feel like we needed to repeat that.
Right,
again.
right.
It's still available, I think, online, but
Yeah.
that's why we wanted to start from here going forward.
Exactly. Okay, please,
I'd like
yes.
to add an accomplishment as well from a learning perspective is last year or in 2018, we had a ballot on the measure on the ballot asking the community if they wanted to participate in discussing splitting the city into council districts, and that passed with I think over 74% of the vote back in 2018. So I think one of the big accomplishments we came out through last year is we spun up a charter review committee that did extensive community outreach, and after a lot of very rigorous debate amongst themselves and with input from the community, we do have on the March ballot a measure to make official.
Oh, wow. Do I have to start all over again for people online? I'm talking about the Charter Review Committee that was done last year as a result of Measure N passing with over 74% of the vote. There was a ton of community outreach, and there is a measure on the ballot this March to make official in our city charter the idea of district-based elections. So I think that is a huge accomplishment, and it will bring the city to bring its charter to not be in conflict with any sort of court order that we have.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you for that. Okay, let's move on to our second question here, and that is what you want to get out of the session today. What is an outcome or outcomes that you would like to see as a result of today and tomorrow? So who'd like to get us started on this one? Mayor Gilmore.
Thank you. I would like to get out from the council after hearing from the public really clear direction to our city staff on the issues that they need to work on this year, and to make sure. And we know that during the year, things do come up that we have to also save some space and capacity for. But that we have very clear, so they're clear because we're a very dynamic city and we have so many things happening in the city on a daily basis sometimes. So we want to make sure that they know where the direction and the policy direction is. So I think that's most important. There are things like last year we never anticipated the convention center was happening. That wasn't on our work plan,
right?
And other things. So we do have to be flexible and dynamic in that respect. But I think the main goals and issues, and I'm actually hoping that we have, maybe less goals but more intensity, more focus on them, so we can actually get them completed.
Excellent, very good. Giving clear direction to staff, I know that makes staff very happy that they get clear direction from council. I think it's a really important point. It's a very weighty list of goals. It covers a lot of territory. There's a lot of meat underneath each one of those. And then something's going to happen, or some things are going to happen this year that you're going to have to respond to that are not on your goal list. It's just inevitable. And so you need to carve out that space for those unanticipated aspects that happen. Councilmember Hardy. Oh, I'm sorry, O'Neill, you were up next.
So as we've already touched on, there's a lot of goals, a lot of meat there. But, and as we're already hearing, we have a community that has a lot of very high expectations. The services that the city is going to be able to deliver. We've had conversations about that. So I think, we have to be realistic. We have to, and, the uncertainty about where the economy may be going, or if things are slightly cooling off, which could be a great thing, because I used to have a very wise manager who used to talk to me about stretch, consolidate, and all that. So I think, though, if we can be realistic about what we can accomplish, but also try to make sure that we're reflecting the values that we feel or see, or our community is clearly communicating to us, so to make sure that that's a consideration in decisions that we make. But we also have to be very, to be forthright and honest and set realistic expectations.
Yes, absolutely. Great. Yes, Councilmember Chahal.
Touch base with what Councilmember Teresa O'Neill said. I know we have a big projects and big developments coming up, but I think at some stage we are trying to forget about the quality of life of our ordinary residents. And that's very, very important, all this stuff, like how everything is impacting our quality of life of our ordinary residents, how we can improve that every day, basically. So that focus on, real focus on the quality of life of our residents is very important.
Excellent. Very good. Good. Yes.
I see it sometimes like spring cleaning. We need to really look at everything and what should we keep? What if we always, and what should we maybe toss out? So I like the idea of, especially our new sustainability, that we look at what's working and what's not, and be clear with our goals, and then let staff carry that out specifically.
Yes, excellent, very good. And I will say, when we come to that, you have on the sustainability goal, and that's a new goal from 2019, that does need a little bit of definition. And from the interviews, and I'll tee this up for you, but it's not, of all your goals, it's the least defined at this particular point. So we'll want you to provide some shape and texture around that. Yes, council member.
Thank you, Sean. Well, we touched upon communication coming in, receiving from the community, but we also need to focus on the communication going out as well. I mean, we've got all kinds of ways through media that we communicate, but it just never seems to be enough. I'm always surprised that some of the residents' comments that I hear that are not true, or how they didn't know that such and such was happening, and as hard as you try to communicate, it just always seems like there's another layer that you need to reach out to and find a way to communicate everything that's happening.
Yes. And that was a theme that I'll mention in just a moment on community engagement. It was a real theme that's top of mind for all of you. And so we'll want to drill down and dig into that a little deeper. Okay, Councilmember Davis, what would you like to get out? What would you like to get out? What would you like to get out of today's session and tomorrow's session as well?
I guess I'm along with Teresa. When we do these priorities, we have to be realistic about what we can and cannot accomplish. And if we throw too much out and nothing is accomplished, then our community is going to say, we're not. So if we see where we can live within our means and do what we can do and be able to say, we accomplished this, I think that has more, I guess, sustainability with me and with the community, because the vision isn't that crazy that it's not attainable, but also not to put the pressure on the staff going, oh my gosh, we have to do this, we have to do this.
Right.
Like the mayor said, we call them drive-bys. Every day something happens and they could be working on something and they have to drop it all because it's an emergency and they have to take care of it. And I guess, as everybody knows in the media, they seem to think that we are dysfunctional. But at the same time, these people are working under great stress at all times, trying to maintain the quality of life and being prudent and being fiscally responsible and whatnot. But when they drop what they have to do, where are they going to make up that time? During their sleep? So we have to be really, realistic about the time and energy and everybody has. We're considered part-time. No way. And we are not part-time. We have never been part-time. We read a lot, we do a lot. So it's, and that kind of gets back to my perception thing and communications, where we need to be a little bit more open about what we're doing, because people think we're hiding things. To me, it's like, let's be realistic, let's do what we can get out there in a relatively good time, but not, get crazy. So that's why I'm saying, I know, I understand people want what they want, but let's be realistic when we come to these things. Let's accomplish something instead of saying we've got 20 things we can't get accomplished and we move it on. I don't want to do that. I want to take 1 year and do what we can realistically get done. So,
Excellent.
And Mayor.
Excellent. Very good. Great on the warm-up exercise there, and I like to say that warm-up exercise with some substance behind it. Got good direction here, and then on the accomplishment side. So let's now transition into where we're going to be spending the bulk of our day on the visioning exercise around the goals and pillars. In your packet, I think it's towards the beginning of the packet, is the summary of the interviews that I conducted with you all. And I'm just going to pull up the goals and pillars, and just so they're up there. Tab 1, the interview summary. So let's start off just with overall themes, and just scroll up or reduce that down just a little bit so we get all 6 up there. So just recalling back to December, so we had the one-on-one interviews, and these were really check-in interviews. You gave me ideas and some suggestions, and then your views, and I captured these in the summary. But it's not like you are now bound to those, or we can't add on to this. This was, as I mentioned earlier, was a way to jumpstart the conversation. But let me just share the overall themes that I extrapolated from the interviews. First, a theme was the current goals, and you have your 7 goals, pillars, are comprehensive. They capture council's vision for the community. They reflect the major priorities for the city. And they are very encompassing of so many different areas and so many different lines of business. So, and it's not to say that you will not introduce new goals here today, but there was nothing that was mentioned in the interviews. This is a big hole, this is missing, we need to fill that in. I did not get that sense from talking to you all. The other bullet, next one down theme, council wants to continue to focus on the goals and just what we heard from a couple council members by addressing the objectives underneath, updating, communicating the status and progress made, and then what are the accomplishments? How did we do in achieving that objective, that task underneath that goal? And wanting to see that progress being made. And so that'll be part of our discussion today. And I will note that in your packet, you have the work plan, staff's work plan, and they have now organized that work plan with the goals and pillars at the top. So I think it's a great way to organize the work plan. Here's your first goal. First pillar, promote and enhance economic and housing development. There it is at the very top. Underneath that, you'll see that in the work plan, and we'll look at that more carefully tomorrow. Here are the objectives and the task and the council referrals underneath that. So that's, I think, a better way to organize, structure it, and I think it makes it more accessible and easier to track progress going forward. And I'm not saying that solves everything, but I think it's a step in the right direction. We also heard, and from Councilmember Watanabe, on the need to have proactive communication and community engagement. And that was just today, but I heard that across the board in the interviews with you all. That one really rises to the surface, and I'm looking at number 5, enhanced community engagement and transparency. And it's not to say, when we get into the details of that, it's not to say that you're not happy with what staff is doing. It's more along the lines of what you just said. There's a lot going on out there in terms of messaging, in terms of social media, and how are we doing keeping up, keeping pace with what's happening? So the good news is you have a project that you have consulting firms coming in, and as I mentioned, they'll be here tomorrow, and they'll be able to share their ideas, and you can engage in conversation with them about that. The next one down is that there were several tasks that you suggested to me that fit underneath the goals in our interviews. Kind of more tasks and objectives. But what I didn't hear were any new strategic goals coming online. So when we get into the discussion of each one of the goals, what I'd like to do is have you at least initially talk at a high level about that goal. What do you see as accomplishments? What do you see as challenge? What would you like to see accomplished in 2020? And then we can drill down into the specific items that you suggested. But I don't think it would be useful to take each goal and then jump into some specific items. Let's have that strategic high-level discussion, at least initially, and then move down into the specific tasks that were suggested. So does that work for folks in terms of how to proceed? So and any responses to those themes, they're all encompassing, they capture your vision, the community engagement, messaging comes out as being very important. Wanting to make sure that these are communicated, the objectives and tasks are communicated, and that you have a sense of closure and accomplishment in terms of what's happening. Anything to add as you just look at these holistically all together? Okay, then my suggestion for next is, let's start at the top of the list and move down and take each pillar, each goal, and I'll just tee it up with the summary here and then let you have the conversation. And we'll just see where the conversation goes. You can obviously respond to what's in the interview summary, but if you want to add new points in, you can add new points in. So, promote and enhance economic and housing development. Overall, I heard from you that good progress is being made here, and you were especially proud of the progress that was being made because of the pace and scope of commercial development, especially around commercial development. There's a lot going on, as you said, and staff is making good progress. Couple, as we start drilling down here, need to carefully monitor new retail space with the increase of online alternatives. How are you balancing that out, your brick and mortar retail, given online retail options there. Maybe there's a market analysis study that gets conducted. Progress is being made on the housing development side. Are you all clear on what your vision is for housing? Is it a BMR, below market rate, affordable housing? Is it more towards all different kinds of housing? What is that vision? So there was a suggestion there that council have that conversation. What is your vision for housing? We get into some specific items down here, exploring public-private partnerships for housing, perhaps with tech companies, technology companies. What is the policy around community benefits for both commercial and housing developments? Do you have a policy? Does that need to be looked at? Do you need to develop a policy? Are you getting those community benefits at the level that you want them? Exploring moving down, exploring increasing the business employee tax. You know, several other cities, Mountain View, et cetera, have done that. Is that something for you all to look at in terms of the business tax, employee tax? And then the last, we heard in the earlier warm-up activity, exploring developing a vision for downtown district, perhaps revitalizing the business improvement district. So there's a lot there to respond to, and you're not bound by that, but it's just a way to jumpstart the conversation. Where are you all at on promoting and enhancing economic and housing development? Get us started, Councilmember Hardy.
Thank you. The reality is, I hear from residents that they think the city makes money when we allow housing. And it's quite the opposite. It costs us more for police, fire, services, things like that. And you'll have residents be very upset. There's not enough housing, and in the same breath, but do something about the traffic. So I think we have a real balancing act, and I don't think it's a balance beam, it's more of a tightrope. That we try to encourage housing because we don't physically build the housing either. And some residents don't always think that way, that the city has, what we can do is allow things. I also see the change in retail because when we talk about retail, it may be a different animal than what we've looked at in the past. And I would love to see, I know it came out of a conversation with the developer years ago when I was on the planning commission that I said, most women I talked to said, where is our alternative grocery store? And I didn't say a specific brand or anything. And that developer went out and found Sprouts. And I was thrilled because it's doing well, because it really was fulfilling a need that we saw. And I wonder if we can be asking our residents, what kind of retail would you like to see? What do you feel like we're missing? And so that we can turn around to a developer and say, when they say retail's changing, we don't need it, maybe their vision of what retail, because it's really more service industries and those things that need to be here and need to be close. And as our population goes up in the city and we allow more housing and it's more dense, I think our needs for retail change.
That's good. Excellent. And not that we need to do that, but the mayor had mentioned you have your executive staff in the room, and they're here as resources for you. And if you have any questions as you're thinking about these, please bring them into the conversation. That's what they're here for today. And yes, Councilmember Davis.
When I look at promote, enhance economic and housing development, the biggest question is traffic. Impacts during the day, during commuter time. I think that we might have to add housing, and when we see housing development and traffic plans, transportation, however, because when I look at three, when I see infrastructure, I think water, Silicon Valley Power. So when I look at that one, housing and transit go together. No matter how you're going to build, you're going to have to figure out transit. And what's happened to us, unfortunately, is the little app called Waze. When things get a little crazy, people go through our service streets during the day. It's a little quieter for the residents, but not everybody is at home all the time. A little easier to get around, but at the same time, we've created gridlock that has made people a little crazy getting to work, from work. It's hit their quality of life. Some people have opted to go shopping at different times so they can avoid. So they've asked, during some conversations before this, residents have asked for changing in timing of the lights. Can we do that during the day to get them through a little faster? They've asked for us to, if we're going to build because we need housing, why are we not engaging with that traffic conversation with the developer and doing this all-encompass type thing that other cities seem to do, but it's hard to do because you don't have everybody sitting in the room. I don't have VTA coming to my meetings when I'm going to pass a development agreement. So it's kind of, we don't know how to address that, but how do we do that? How do we get those resources to the people in communication and say, what is really impacting what street? How's it happening? Where are you going? And to Councilmember Hardy's, when she said, what do people ask for? I can tell you, Trader Joe's. That's all I hear, Trader Joe's. Give me a Trader Joe's. But retail has changed. And people are looking for, if they are in a development and what we call urban village, they want the coffee shop, they want the dry cleaner, they want those necessities that they need right away. The other things will come in time, but they're looking for things that will make them comfortable. So when I look at development and putting in retail, it's the stuff that, the sustainability that they need. One of the things that came was in Kathy's region, they love Rivermark, the perfect urban village. But the one complaint is they don't have a pharmacy. So these are kind of things that when we're thinking about development, what are the needs of the people to help them, live?
Yeah.
And help the quality of life. So I think I would like to add transportation in with that.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair thing to talk about
Yeah.
because they do go hand in hand. And legislation that is coming down now is housing and transportation.
Yeah.
So if we're not looking at both together, then I think we're wasting our time.
Yeah.
So those are just my things on that. Economic development, I think when we bring business to our city, we're looking for the mom and pops. And we've heard continuously from Kirk Barton that it is changing out there. The model is changing. I'm a baby boomer, the silver tsunami, I'm going to be looking for something, am I going to retire? What am I going to do? But at the same time, we are not replacing the mom and pops. We are putting them out of business. We are big stores. We are Amazon. We are different things. Things are being delivered to our homes now. So when we look at how we live, we have to look into the future and what are the needs of the people that are coming behind us? Because I don't want some millennial saying to me, okay, boomer, 'cause that's all you hear. So it's like one of those things where we need to work together, and I think there's a consistency there. We just got to find it. So those are my comments.
Yeah, that's good. And just a quick little internal summary. Really need to look at retail, re-examining retail. What does the community need in retail? And then the traffic, transportation, and that came up in both comments. Would you like to go, Council Member?
Sure. So I'll touch a couple of public-private partnerships. Cisco recently invested in one of the affordable homeless project in Santa Clara. And all these billion-dollar companies have a lot of funds. I know we recently passed 2330 Monroe, 65 affordable units. Most of the equity on that one came from all the public sector. Whereas we have so many good businesses in the city, we need to explore how they can participate in the overall development of the city, overall quality of life of the residents. And they have to understand the pains of the residents, like rents, affordability are going so high. So that is very, very important. And all these businesses, I think they, if approached properly, like Apple, Microsoft invested $1 billion in sustainability, right? Apple invested so much into housing out there. So we need to explore what the businesses in our city can do for us. And let's not only depend what the public sector, our own funds can do, let's also explore how we can utilize their funds.
Excellent. And primarily around housing.
Around housing, and one more, primarily around housing and transportation. One of the most important goal for me for this session would be transportation. Like each and every resident is complaining about the traffic issues. We have not done anything to accomplish for the shuttles. VTA is there. VT has its own limitations, what they are going through, and budgeting and all that stuff. They're cutting down some services. But I look at the model from Mountain View. Mountain View has 2 free shuttles, MV Go and Mountain View Community Shuttle. MV Go is Mountain View invested a little bit equity, but most of the other equity on MV Go is from all the businesses. Samsung, Google, and all those big corporations within Symantec, they have invested in that. And what they did is they made that board, Mountain View Transport Development Management Board. And they are managing that transportation of free shuttle from transit hubs to the main business employee centers. And I think, if I'm not wrong, last year, they had 130,000 trips. So what does that mean? 130,000 people left their cars behind. They were able to transport them to those centers. And then that was the main connectivity through the shuttle to the businesses. Then they explored with the Google. Now, Google runs their Mountain View community shuttle. 100% funded by Google, 100%. Again, ridership on that was 220,000. And they invested in that because they asked them to do that. They're asking them, and our ask has to increase to our businesses. And Google Shuttle connects all the major business or residentials or libraries, senior centers, everything over there. So that's one thing we need to look at, how we can engage our businesses to do that. Another thing, Cupertino recently started Via Cupertino, and that's on-demand service. And they started with their own funding around up to $2 million for 18-month period. And they got almost all the funding from outside resources, like Area Air Quality Management Board and some funding from the VTA. So they're fully funded right now, and they are doing pretty good. So we have to explore all these aspects. And if we have a free shuttle, and I was in a meeting with the Senior Advisory Committee on Monday, it is so important for them. It's so important for them to have a free shuttle going around. And even connecting north side to this side, if anybody has to come from north side to this library or any of the senior center, it's a big issue of transportation. Right. So if we can have that shuttle, that's very important. And exploring the business employee tax. I requested some numbers. I don't have those numbers, how much employee tax we are getting from the top 15 of our businesses. That's another thing. And Mountain View did the same thing. They raised the tax, and 80% of that tax is being invested into the transportation. So we need to explore that. And anything we can improve the quality of life of our residents, we can easily pass those measures. That's not a problem. And not only that, I'm not trying to punish any businesses. The Mountain View's total revenue from that is $4 to $6 million. That's nothing if we compare to the businesses we have: Intel, Palo Alto Networks, AMD, Analog Devices, Hitachi Ventura. That overall, those companies it's nothing for them, nothing, peanuts to get that type of money from that. So that's those are some of my priorities on this section, like how we can improve the quality of life. And these corporations have to cooperate and participate in reducing the pains of the ordinary resident.
Excellent, very good. And so the public-private partnership is a major theme here, and then transportation comes in again. So it's a major theme so far that we're hearing across the board. Good. And so yes, Councilmember O'Neill.
Okay, so to kind of keep this at a little bit higher level, so I agree particularly with the transportation issues as that feeds in. It's like the three-legged stool there. With the other two areas that are mentioned. So I would just like to say that, because we do have like on number 3, high quality, efficient services, that when we're looking about how we can facilitate economic, housing, and transportation development, that we look at to make sure that our processes are as easy to maneuver and make our way through as possible, because, that particularly in the affordable housing area, if you talk to Jonathan Veach about what, and the presentations that we get about what it takes to fund affordable housing or what you have to go through. And, it's for all of these projects, it just takes years for a lot of these projects to move forward. So, and I know that we're just part of it. There's the bigger piece, but if we can, when we look at how can we promote and enhance these types of developments that we want, is that if make sure that we're making it, we don't want to just open the doors and let anybody do what they want, to make sure that we're not being viewed as a hindrance. So that, once again, to kind of piggyback into the high quality, efficient services.
Good. So internal city processes are facilitating economic development as opposed to being an obstacle, a hindrance, something that's getting in the way.
And the housing and transportation.
With the housing as well.
All of that.
Yeah, good. Excellent. Yes.
Thank you. And just adding on to that, the retail component, and also, the making the quality of life better for the residents. If there is a way, when we look at, the economic and sustainability, how are, like, when business wants to come to Santa Clara, how do they work with our community development department, with our planning department, we can't tell people how to run a business, but at the same time, make sure that a business that wants to do business here in Santa Clara, whether it's a mom and pop or, maybe a franchisee, that they have a model that's going to be sustainable, that's going to be successful. And I look at Rivermark Plaza, where I live right now, and in my neighborhood, and there are 5 empty actually, businesses. And I know there are proposed businesses going into 3, but one of them in particular, when the residents found out what was being replaced by a former favorite bagel shop, people were outraged. I'm not going to go to that restaurant. So, but they're coming in, but, we want to see business successful here, and because it adds, number one, it provides, again, that quality of life for the residents, but also a form of tax revenue for the city. We want to make sure that keeps going and is successful too. But at the same time, is there a way that we can make sure that what comes here to the city, is going to be successful? Can we get input from the community, or input, from the council, and in that respect? So
excellent, very good. Jump in.
I have a point on sales tax, income, retail. I think from April 1st we started collecting online taxes for anything coming to Santa Clara. So we need to have exact numbers, like how much revenue are we making. Like, there's one thing having a business right in Santa Clara, we are collecting tax for that for sure. But online tax, like from April 1st, we need to have a right numbers. Even if the business is not here, but anything coming, being sold in Santa Clara, what's the revenue we are getting out of it? So that number will give us real data. Okay, although business is not here, there's a lot of money which is coming from the online sales to Santa Clara. So we should have that idea, like what's the revenue from that component of that.
Good, good.
It would be a good statistics going forward.
Excellent.
To plan our retail and other stuff.
Good, very good. And we'll give, staff will have a chance to respond to some of these items, but let's just hear from the rest of the council members. Yes.
Thank you. First of all, Santa Clara, we don't really have an economic development department.
Mm-hmm.
We have different members of the city manager's office. We have an economic development officer, kind of. Yeah, she does a lot of different things. But she's like, yeah, she does everything. But Ruth does. But we don't have an economic development department, which can really help in terms of initiatives for large businesses and small businesses. We just don't have that infrastructure set up in our city. And I know all of us have all kinds of ideas all the time, but we don't really have any department in itself that would handle that. I think Santa Clara has been, very fortunate, at least in the last, through the cycles, that business is coming to us where we haven't had to go out and sell our souls to bring businesses or subsidize businesses to come to Santa Clara, because we're a very attractive community and we've been very fortunate in that sense. But at the same time, we're not able to deliver really services to especially small businesses. And I know we have the worker co-op, that's coming up, and that would be an example of how if we had a city actual dedicated department to that, some of those issues, partnerships with large businesses, we don't really proactively go out and do any of that. We kind of did it on our own a little bit, but we're not engaging, first of all, because of our time and capacity, but we just don't have the infrastructure. So I think that's something we may want to look at in terms of actually having an economic development department. I know other cities have it as well. What's happening in promoting and enhancing economic and housing development, I agree we need to add the transportation, because none of this happens without the transportation element. But what we do there really affects a lot of our other strategic goals in terms of the more development we have, the more taxing it is on our infrastructure, our public safety, our roads, our libraries, our parks. Like, everything happens when we do that, so that triggers, challenges in other areas. I think as Councilmember Hardy, or Vice Mayor Hardy said, we don't make money on housing because it costs us, but
right.
There's other benefits to that. So, and we also have to be responsive to the market. And I know a lot of people, real estate is my real other job profession, but everyone wants to dictate where tenants are going and other things, but they don't realize that we have to be responsive to a market.
Exactly.
The market is going to dictate how much housing is being built, what's out there, what type of retail tenants you're going to get, its location, its population. There's so many things that go into this mix. And what happens with, we saw the difference between big department stores now down to more specialty shops and that. So I think that part of our challenge in being in government is that we have to be responsive when the market's there. We have to respond to it, and then we have to pull back when it's not. So I think that what our residents are expecting of us and where we need to deliver on these strategic goals and pillars, especially for number one, is that our residents are looking for us to provide shopping, retail services, restaurants, and entertainment. And I think that's what we're missing in Santa Clara. So I think it's really important that we look at preserving the retail areas of our city, especially strategic areas on El Camino, and other areas of the city. We have to preserve the retail sites. I know we've put some residential and other things in there, but I think it's important for us to identify and preserve those retail areas, because that's what our residents are starving for. If you go to the center, the Target Center, any afternoon for lunch, which I do a lot, I mean, you can't get in because it's such a, it's a neighborhood retail. We talked about cleaner, all those things.
Right.
Neighborhood retail, we have to preserve that at all costs. But we also look at quality of life, not only for our residents, but our business residents. And so our business residents, you look at you look at people parking in our neighborhoods, and then they get on the big white buses, and then they go, up and down the peninsula to their jobs and everything else, and people dropping people off, close to their work. That's because, a lot of the younger people are living in San Francisco because it's fun and there's a lot to do and there's restaurants and entertainment and that, because we're not providing that here. So one of the things that's going to really help us is the City Place project, because it's going to provide that. But our business residents are looking for, they're also competing for employees, and they're looking for our city to provide good housing, especially affordable housing. They're looking for us to provide, restaurants, shopping, entertainment, parks, recreation, libraries for their employees as well, so that they live, work, and play in Santa Clara. They stay out of their cars, stop causing so much traffic and everything else, instead of going up and down 101 and 280 and clogging our streets and that. So they're looking for us to provide that for their people. They want a quality of life too for their employees, and our residents want a quality of life. So I think that looking at, the overall economic plan, housing, transportation, it all comes together. And I see that we have been just reacting because it's been coming at us so fast over the years that we need to really step back and have, a more deeper conversation about what we want things to look like. We've kind of done that because we have these specific plan areas in North Bayshore. We have the specific plan on the El Camino. We have the downtown Santa Clara plan. They're working on that too. So there's, areas of town we're really focusing on now. We're trying to get a handle and focus on. So I think we need to spend more time focusing on those focus areas, those specific plan areas,
right?
So that we have more a say as to what we want. But we need to do it efficiently and rapidly before we lose a market, because it's going to come.
Yeah,
it's coming. So that's how I just wanted to give a bigger view of there's all kinds of things underneath, but
that's good. And it's great to stay, and we can, if we need to drill down, but it's great to stay here at the larger level so we can have the strategic conversation. Yes?
I'll just add one more, which I missed earlier. The state passed SB 1482, that's a Tenant Protection Act, and a lot of our tenants are facing higher rents in the city. So education of our residents who are facing those rent issues, like we have to educate them about SB 1482, as well as what city can do to take care of those. That comes into the housing and affordability component of that. That's one important thing we need to look at.
Excellent.
Our residents who are
good.
Hard to pay those rents. Thank you.
Excellent. Other comments, reactions, thoughts here to anything in the interview summary? Anything else that jumps out at you here? I'm hearing a couple themes come out of this conversation, and one clearly is around traffic and transportation. And so if we could just stop there, how does that figure into this goal? Deanna, is this a good time to maybe bring in Public Works, or just to talk a little bit, is it part of this goal? How does it play out in terms of economic and housing development?
It is part of this goal, and even on Tuesday, as you know, VTA showed up and wanted to make a pitch and requested to make a presentation. The council tomorrow will be able to delve into VTA's proposal, and you'll have the opportunity to take next steps on that proposal. I'd like to invite Craig up just to offer a couple of comments about opportunities or challenges in the next year, so that you can hear directly about some of the key projects underway.
Thank you. Craig Mobeck, Director of Public Works. So with all the developments that come through the city, traffic is obviously an important part of it, and it is reviewed. There's a traffic impact analysis and reports done. But like many have mentioned, traffic is a big issue in many communities. As populations increase, as developments become much more dense, naturally it leads to more people, more vehicles. And so the approach is ever changing. There's a lot of different philosophies on that. When we look at, ped bikes versus vehicles, there's a large group of people that are in more support of ped and bikes and not as concerned with traffic because they see that as an avenue to push people into other modes of transportation. So there was comments about about what we do to help ease traffic congestion. We do have a number of projects we've received grants for in regards to traffic timing. And so we do look at corridors. I think we've looked at Lick Mill, Homestead, just to name a couple, but there is a long list that we've been completing. We try and sync those signals to help get traffic moving through them as quick as possible. But although you do have to respect the other cross streets, because if you give more green on the one lane or one travel way, then the other is obviously going to be reduced. So it is a balancing act. I don't think that we'll ever get to a point of a solution to ease congestion, period. Other agencies, like you look at freeways, they've stopped, in many cases, adding lanes because they know you add lanes, it increases more vehicles. So there's a balance in there. The other thing we're looking at, as you know, we have to, the whole VMT. We'll be coming back to council to discuss looking at the vehicle miles traveled because we have to as opposed to LOS. So that does change some things. So the approach is changing, but nonetheless, it is a big focal point of Public Works as we look at development, and we work closely with CDD on that.
I want to add that the issue, as we all know, is there's regional issues in terms of the impacts to our city streets, in that we are a city that has many expressways where people use Santa Clara to pass through, which adds to the traffic congestion and complicates the solutions or some remedies that we can provide at the local level. And that intersects with the conversation around funding and what are the capabilities. And already the regional discussion is being had around Measure A funds for transportation and whether to reassign them and issues of that sort. So that will be very much at play in 2019 for the council to consider.
Excellent. Questions for Deanna or Craig? Comments?
So have we explored, like I know Via Cupertino, they're exploring their contiguous cities and they're ready to expand that program with the contiguous cities. So I would highly suggest that let's look at those programs. At least we start with something, like Via Cupertino is on demand, and it's pretty, they have $3.50 for a ride, and for seniors or disabled, they can even pick up from their home, and they connect within the city. And they're ready to explore that thing with our city. So we should explore that. And also look at a Mountain View model of, like, Mountain View City is not managing neither of those two programs, but they're proactively asking their developers and their community businesses to participate in those. So I think we should take a lead on both of these programs so that we can have some free shuttle or something program like that. And that can really, really reduce quite a bit of traffic and really helpful for students. Mountain View students, they go on a free shuttle. Their parents don't have to take them to the school, drop them off, and come back and pick them up. They use that shuttle. Even for Via Cupertino, they're using that. For students, they have a discounted rate and other stuff. So we should really look into those, and I would say on top priority, and especially the model which are already working. Not that we have to reinvent the wheel, like we are starting everything from the grassroots. So I would say let's give a top priority how we can make those things work in our city.
Any thoughts, Craig, on shuttles? Any work that's been done, or would that have to get started from scratch?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd have to discuss that in terms of a policy, and if council's directing staff to start looking at those, I think we need to look at staffing, look at funding compared to all our other unfunded resources, see if that's, I don't know how cost effective those models, but I think there's a lot of work that would have to go into exploring that.
I do too, and I misspoke, it's Measure B earlier, but this is a referral or an initiative that, having worked on a similar shuttle program for the city of Sunnyvale, and Craig, we can comment on that a little, it is a multi-year effort in terms of the grant application process and influencing the appropriation of funds at the right agencies, and then working with the businesses for calculating their share of contribution. It's not something that I would suggest could come within our existing resources. We'd really have to model it and understand what are the resources that we would need, and what are the sequence of events that would need to occur in order to get us to a shuttle service within the community.
Yeah, I agree to that, and I don't discount that. But to give you an example, I think Cupertino started VR discussion early 2019, and they made it happen like 29th of October. They started that. So I think within a year, they were able to implement that. So my idea is, I'm not saying I want a shuttle tomorrow, but at least we have to focus on that. And Mountain View City is not putting much of resources in that. They just jump-starting it. They are asking their developers to. Google is 100% managing their free shuttle. Mountain is not. And Mountain View, TD, Transport Development Management, is a non-profit outside board managed by all these non-profits. They're managing that. Right. Mountain View only invested $100,000 in that, I think. So how we take a lead on that, how we did, that's more important.
Well, and that was my point, is that to the extent that it's Google managing and providing the service, then obviously they can go to market quicker. And to the extent that it's the public sector side, then we have to evaluate what are our responsibilities as a public sector provider. I don't know of a business that has offered to administer the program for us and take it and run with it. And so if it's the city initiating it, then we really need to give ourselves the time, because in Sunnyvale, that was the case where we applied for a grant through MTC, and we're trying to get the businesses to get involved. And it was a lot more of a time, the duration of time, it took a lot longer.
Yeah. My only contention is, if Mountain View would not have asked these businesses to do it, none of them would have done it. But there was a big ask from Mountain View leadership and Mountain View staff. Hey, you have to do it. And I want that pressure so that we make a big ask to these corporations, like, you have to do it. That's my point.
Excellent. Let me move us on and make sure we captured everything around the retail discussion. And what I heard you all saying is, what does the community want? What does the community need in terms of retail? And to do that engagement, and that what I heard was restaurants, retail, shopping, and it is accessible, and preserving your current retail, neighborhood retail especially, and that becomes a priority for council. Am I hearing that correctly? Anything to add on to that?
Both the mayor and entertainment as well.
I'm sorry, I missed the entertainment, absolutely, yeah.
Karen needs her entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I work with teenagers, I understand.
And it's top of the list for teenagers, absolutely. Good, yes.
I don't know if this fits into entertainment, but I've actually had several residents ask for more gyms.
For more gyms?
Yes,
Okay.
like 24-hour fitness, city sports, places like that.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
definitely.
Good, good. The other theme I heard was revenue, around economic development and public-private partnerships, perhaps having an economic development staff, an economic development department, and the whole idea of tax revenue and the housing not really providing a lot of tax revenue. So you're all also focused on the economic development piece, and as I think Councilmember O'Neill said, the revenue is critical because it funds everything else that's on the list. And so what's going on there, and you want to see progress in that area, yes.
So is this the goal where we would talk about the revenue opportunities that we have? I mean, that's, of course, nothing else happens unless we have the revenue, so.
Under economic development, I would say
And I
absolutely.
think we need to really focus on generating revenue for the city, because of our ongoing needs are tremendous in terms of our employees and in terms of providing services to the community. Everything's going up, so we have to have a predictable revenue source. So it's very important that we explore all the revenue sources and take advantage of all of our opportunities for revenue sources in the city.
Absolutely, good.
Actually should be number one.
Right.
Do all the things we want to.
Exactly. That's good. That's good. Anything from staff, anything on that, on the revenue sources? Anything to comment on? Good.
We'll have a presentation on our 10-year forecast, which we could continue the conversation after that.
Excellent. And then Councilmember O'Neill mentioned, and I don't know if this needs a lot of discussion, just ensuring that your city processes and permitting processes and planning department and others are easy, accessible, and not a hindrance towards both residential and commercial development. And just wanting to ensure that's the
Housing,
case.
especially for affordable housing.
Yes. And the housing one, where I'm not clear, I heard affordable housing, especially in terms of responding to business interest. And so they need employees, and they need their employees to be able to afford to live in the city. Is affordable housing, is that a priority under the housing label?
Well, affordable housing, but what some people call workforce housing, which encompasses fire, police, teachers,
Yes.
kind of everybody, but we need a very diverse portfolio on all of that.
Yeah.
We have a market rate, but we need that below market rate to help the people that live here.
Right. And so does that jive with other council members? Yes.
Housing options.
Housing options, and having a range of housing options, but not leaving the workforce BMR below market rate, making sure that's there, but also having a wider portfolio of housing availability. Different types of housing stock. Good.
I think getting creative, like a couple of years ago, we took an old factory and made it a work-live loft units.
Perfect.
So when we talk about options, I think we need to be very open to different options when we look at our rules and our housing guidelines.
Excellent. So being creative, right, in how you're dealing with housing. That's great. Okay, anything that council wants to, we had the discussion around shuttles. Any specific items that council wants to suggest or request for staff? Yes.
Well, I will make the point that I personally have sat behind 7 of the very large buses in Mountain View around by Google, and it didn't help the traffic. And I saw them clog up entire intersections for almost an hour.
Okay.
So I'm not certain that's the big overall solution.
Okay.
I think we need to be creative and look at what other situations have done as well.
Very good. Excellent. Okay, anything else on goal pillar number 1? Ready? Is now a good time for a break? We want a break, or are we ready to move on to number 2?
Let's get number 2 done.
Let's get number 2 done. Okay, good. And I will say, I'm not sure, and that was a great discussion, and we went probably about 45 minutes. We may not need that long. It's your option, absolutely, but we may not need that long on all of these. That's a big one, obviously. Okay, so let's move on to enhancing community sports and recreational assets. So in terms of the summary, starting off, what I heard from you all. Good progress being made here, and it was even mentioned by the mayor in terms of the open space and the parks that have come online, including soccer park, including dog park. So great progress being made. And any other accomplishments or successes you want to share, that would be great. And any challenges around this particular pillar, open the door for that. The 2020 bond or parcel tax is important for addressing your aging sports and recreation facilities and infrastructure, like, for example, the swim center. So if there's a conversation here about the 2020 bond or parcel tax, that also comes up in one of the other goals as well. Getting more specific, bike trail improvements. And we know the bike trails around Levi Stadium on event days. Can we open those up? But just improvements also generally. The definition of recreation. You emphasize a lot. I know you're a very competitive city, and you emphasize competitive swimming and competitive soccer. Also opening that up to non-competitive type activities such as yoga, such as aerobics. We heard Councilmember Watanabe hearing for gyms and wanting more gyms and that kind of non-competitive recreation and exercise. Consider building a multi-use arts center in partnership with Santa Clara University. So this would be a big capital project there. And we heard one of the, in public comment, as well as from a council member, building a senior center or senior centers in the city. So reactions to that, any other thoughts around what's going on with your community sports and recreational assets? Councilmember Hardy.
Since I chair BPAC, and obviously bicycles are a big deal, The concern was the repair and maintenance, and obviously the expansion of bike trails, because that can help us with number one as far as our transportation.
Okay, yeah.
And I will say recreation changes also. As a kid, there were no soccer parks, and now we have soccer parks all over the city. And I've heard a big pitch to have a cricket pitch as the demographics change. And then I found that interesting, and that possible place is Central Park for that. We also have put forth an idea of wayfinding for bicyclists, some better signage to give trails that will connect us to other cities and help people get through the city on a bike trail and recognize that. So a lot of work has been done on this wayfinding project, and I'd love to bring that up to more of a priority. Thank you.
Excellent. So bikes, wayfinding, and what was the?
Wayfinding is part of the bike trails.
Part of bike
signage. And cricket pitch.
Yes, got it. Great, excellent. Okay, other reactions, thoughts? Yes, Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes, and on the cricket pitch, I think that there's going to be a new one going in at the Luther School site. Cupertino Union, I think, has entered into an agreement with a cricket organization, but I don't know how, what the accessibility to the public will be.
Okay.
And I think there's also improvements being done at Wilson High School campus for cricket. Yeah,
Okay,
so
good.
they're improving the facilities, but that is obviously, I think that I believe that cricket's the number one
Sport.
Has the highest numbers of fans or viewers or whatever of any sport, even more than soccer. Is what some statistics are.
Worldwide, internationally.
Worldwide,
yeah.
worldwide, internationally, and now the world has come to Santa Clara. So, and some of these reflect some of my comments about, but I do think with a lot of our facilities, like I think that one of the needs assessments for Park and Rec did talk about that. Actually, some of the, and I don't remember, and Director Teixeira probably remembers, the demographics of who responded, but the needs assessments for Parks and Rec that was done a few years ago showed that the top interests were not in any form of competitive sport.
Okay.
They were things like walking, hiking, being in a natural area, things, Tai Chi, those kinds of, more experiential with interacting with nature, because that feeds the soul and the body in different ways. So I put in a pitch for that. And then also the multi-use art center. That's something I've been advocating for a couple of years. Because we initially had talked about putting an art center in with a revised swim center. It was going to be a complete, community center with replacing, we have kind of an inadequate little theater in the community recreation center, because I don't think that seating is ADA compliant. But I know there's a lot of interest in developing the downtown, and I think that one of the ways, that's going to be a very complicated project in order to bring people that would sustain restaurants and shops and things like that. If there was perhaps a center that we could work on with Santa Clara University, so that it could be, perhaps, a theater, and maybe show movies on the weekends, and, reproduce the marquee, but have lots of flexible space for studio and performance art, and also perhaps as a conference center that the city and the university could market as kind of for those groups that maybe don't want to rent a convention center, but they may be wanting to have a conference. And I think that would be something else that would, if the center was designed, I think, appropriately, it could meet a lot of needs, and it would help us in our bring visitors to Santa Clara.
Excellent, very good, great. Other comments? Yes, council member.
So on cricket, yes, for sure. Like I'm the only one who I think played cricket in my school days and college days. So for sure we need a cricket pitch, changing demographics. And yes, Indian Cricket Board is one of the richest board in the world, basically, even more money than even NFL probably, right?
Will you start playing cricket again? If
I will. I can. I'll try what best I can do right now. So, that's good. And I would emphasize like bike trails, like if we can expand that, put emphasis on that, also helps in sustainability part of it. To add to that, reducing traffic. And senior center in the north side, location-wise, it has come time and again. They need something. And again, reducing the traffic on that. And one thing I would, partnership with the school district for recreation facilities. We did start, I think, one lawn tennis court partnership, but that's the one thing, like school district has so many assets on the park and ride. And if we can partner with them, that would be great facilities all across the city for our residents. That's one thing to look into.
Excellent. Very good.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Davis.
I guess I'm into adding words today. Enhance community sports and recreational assets. Where are the arts? I am in total agreement with Councilmember O'Neill on everything she said. We need to partner with the university. We do have a great art world. It's not communicated very well. We have the Triton, we have Day to Say, we have a little performing arts group that nobody knows about. There are things in our community that we do little things that the Cultural Commission now is having partnerships with the Triton Museum to bring dance and music and things. And something like that is part of our overall, goals and enhances the core services that we have. But at the same time, it's one of those ones that seems to be put to the back burner a little bit. And I think we need to get that out. We are so culturally diverse that it's out there. We just need to get it together somehow and market it a little bit better. I believe that I'm with Teresa by bringing that CRC type thing down to the downtown revitalization, to that downtown area, will enhance the Santa Clara University and their art museum and what they have, along with a lot of our historical preservation that nobody seems to know about in our city, the railroad station. All of these things that tell the story of Santa Clara, but we're not telling the story, and we're not allowing to get this information out to the people so that they're more engaged, because we hear all the time, I don't have anything to do, nothing here, I got to get on, I got to go somewhere else for whatever. So I think when we develop all of this, that it will help people understand what we do have, and we'll just build on it.
Yeah.
So, I'm all about the sports. I mean, we are doing great deals with that. We do partner with the school district on a lot of ball fields and things of that nature. And with the cricket thing is going up in my neighborhood. Yes, it is. They are building that cricket thing. It's like coming out of the ground over there. It's Cupertino School District, but it's in my district. So people are answering the call to the needs of the community. And that was a need that has now been met. And we also have met it in the city of Santa Clara. But I just think that we're doing a good job. It's like, once again, the funding, how are we going to get it there? Are there grants? I mean, are there things that can help us, enhance that quality of life for our people in the arts? And I have to advocate for that. And the other thing, I'm hoping that my city manager might kill me on this, but take part of some of that TOT money, because we want to be a destination. We want to have people come and see us and promote that. I think that is an important asset of ours, especially our history. I mean, that just the train station alone is where we fed the rest of the nation. Out of our little train station, that's where the railroad went.
Yeah.
That was our market. We were the Valley of the Heart's Delight at one time, and now we're the disc people, we're Silicon Valley. But we have to remember who we are to keep going forward. So I think that's an important part of our history. So, and the mayor came back from a conference, and they didn't know about Santa Clara. And the same thing happened to me. I was back east, and I said, I live in Santa Clara. They're like, Silicon Valley, they know that.
Yeah.
So why are we not marketing ourselves and making that something that we have? Just make our city a little bit stronger, and I think the arts will help us with that.
Excellent. Very good. So I'll circle back around with you and see where the rest of you are. If you expand this to include the arts, as Councilmember Davis got us started. Yes.
On that note, I know Mr. Surtz brought that point, public art fees. That's a point we can look at that for funding these projects.
Yes, yeah.
It's a very good idea. And one other thing is magical bridges. I know we are developing one on the Central Park, but it's a good opportunity to, when we're looking at City Place Park, we incorporate that from the very beginning.
Yeah.
That because everybody liked the concept, and even the seniors and special need. This is such a good way to involve all community members on that. Excellent. So from the start, we should look at that.
Councilmember Watanabe?
Thank you, Sean. One thing that Santa Clara is known for is being an age-friendly city, and we were identified as an age-friendly city. People are living longer, and as evidenced by the mayor and I, we went out to one of the senior retirement facilities recently and to celebrate the birthday of a woman that turned 100, and we know that there are a lot more out there, and that's wonderful. And so as a result, I mean, you see some of these folks and they are just ready to go. They're still, full of life and they want to be out there. So having places like, all access playgrounds are absolutely wonderful. And we're very fortunate that the county gave us the grant for the Magical Bridge that, the city still has to raise money to help build, but at the same time, it adds to that necessity that people want to see in their city, to be able to be outdoors. And if we're not on trails, we can still have, other ways to participate and enjoy life. Regarding the trails, I definitely agree, and I'm happy that, again, going back to public-private partnerships, that Related is also will be enhancing the trails up by the City Place, because there are a lot of trails that are connecting to, that'll take you up to Palo Alto, Fremont. So those kinds of partnerships and having that availability to just keep people moving are wonderful. And, if there's a way that we can enhance that, for sure, definitely. And then as we look to develop, the north side, continuing on with the Central Park North, as some folks call it, and seeing how, I know we don't have the funding for it right now, and people are very excited about it, but it's a good opportunity to add, additional dog parks. Dog parks are very popular in Santa Clara, and we're very fortunate that even though it was kind of like an accident, but we were able to add an additional park over on Lafayette as a result of the Reed Street Park closing, but now it's become a permanent park because it was so popular. And but we definitely need more dog parks, and Central Park North will definitely be a good opportunity to look at that as the Parks and Rec Commission starts focusing on that, and we look at a bond to see how we can develop it, but also a possibility for a future senior community type center as well. I'm hearing a lot of asks about that as well, and so. I think there's a lot of great opportunities, and there's a lot of asks, and there's a lot of needs, and it can't be done. It needs money, but I think we're in a good place in terms of listening to the residents and what they want in terms of their quality of life.
Excellent, very good. Other comments? Yes, Mayor?
Yes, thank you. I agree with everyone up here and what they said, that we do need to add art. So hopefully when we get to that point, we can maybe amend this this goal. Add that. I think Councilmember O'Neill mentioned about passive recreation, such as mindful meditation, yoga. I think it's because all of us are too old to compete in competitive sports. Now we're looking for something else to do. So I think that's important. Yes, right, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, okay. But I think we also need to look at taking advantage of open space opportunities in connection with existing facilities. And I think when we talk about, our bond or parcel tax or whatever we're going to do in November, looking at we need to right-size the swim center and the community center. I think it got a little out of control before. We need to right-size that. a very important component is going to be Central Park North, as Councilmember Watanabe mentioned. Central Park North and all the trail system. As we densify housing, especially in that area, we need to provide more open space, even more open space opportunities in those dense residential areas. But also looking at our facilities like our libraries. This is an example of where we are today, actually opening up the back of the library to Central Park, maybe putting some, expanding the library out, similar to what they do during some of their events like Comic-Con and other things. The Northside Library, and especially the Mission Library as well, looking at those areas. And then we have great opportunities at our senior center to open up the senior center into the parks and doing those kinds of things. I'd like us to look at assets that we have right now and how we can better use some of the assets that we have in terms of enhancing. We're going to be opening a fair amount of parks this year because many of them are attached to development. We're looking at opening the Reed and Grant Street Park, which is going to be an important component for the youth sports. A lot of cricket. I think there's another, is it Bracker or Bowers? I feel like there's another cricket opportunity. Is it there's a third site somewhere.
Okay.
And I know cricket, I know on Wilson, a lot of them are played by adult leagues. And I think that we need to provide opportunities for the youth cricket to thrive in the city as well. So adding that, let me see if I have some notes here. Senior center, I think that's it.
Good, excellent. Any other thoughts, reactions, comments here? We're kind of specific here and very tangible on this one here. The bikes came out and trails came out as a priority for numerous reasons, environmental reasons, traffic reduction, easier to move around. It sounds like the cricket fields are in play. It sounds like there's 1, 2, 3 that are in process, in plan. That's moving forward. I'm hearing the endorsement to also emphasize the non-competitive aspects of recreation. I'm hearing an endorsement there for that. On the senior center, I'm not hearing a lot of endorsement for new senior centers. There's some, but I'm not. If any others want to weigh in, but what I am hearing is attending to your embracing your age-friendly city status and making services and opportunities available to your seniors. And then the arts piece comes in. Let's come back to that in just a second. But there was also the discussion of revenue. Pursuing grants, there was the idea that perhaps you could take some of the TOT money around that, and then a couple times has been mentioned the potential bond or parcel tax. And then utilizing open space, as the mayor just said, utilizing open space near existing facilities. You've got libraries. Can you open up libraries, especially those that are near open space, so that you're utilizing and not having to create from new? Did I miss anything there in terms of priorities? What about arts? What about amending goal pillar number 2? To something, as Councilmember Davis said, something along the lines of enhanced community sports, recreational assets, and the arts, something along those lines. Does that make sense? Yes.
Yes, and I know we had talked about an arts fee in the city, and I don't know if that's I guess that would be under revenue opportunities manager. Would it be under this goal or
it's an arts.
Just under maybe
as a whole.
An arts feeding?
Like a developer fee for art?
We have the council referral, and
we haven't said specifically how we would assess a fee, but
arts fee.
We need a session on that, but I want to make sure we have it somewhere.
Yeah.
So that we don't.
we have it. And Ken, do you know the timing? Is it next year we're bringing something forward, or I know it's under study?
Is it? I know we talked about this already.
Sorry, I'll start that over just for the public audience. We do have a development fee impact study in progress. That the art component was part of that, but we did put that on hold as we looked at some of the legal challenges around that. That's been cleared now, so that we can continue to look at that, and we can bring forward something probably in the spring to early summer timeframe from a impact fee analysis back to the council.
So I guess my question is that doable within adding the arts, to change, to add the arts, but to also have that part of the budget discussion? Yeah. I mean, that's...
So let's open that up. But thoughts about that? Deanna, any reactions?
Well, I just want to put on the record, I'm not going to kill Councilmember Davis over TOT. No, I think we just need to get through tomorrow's conversation around the budget and what our outlook looks like, and then assemble the list. What we're doing as we hear your priorities coming up through the discussions on the pillars, we are assembling a list so that on day 2, we can provide that to the council and you can affirm it, add to it, or remove items from it, so that when we walk out of this room, we are walking with the priorities that are they are the expression and by formal action, the deemed priorities for the council. And so now's the time to put these things on the list and not pull back, because tomorrow you will be taking formal action. So this is the visioning process, and you will put as much as you want, take a look at our financials, and then you can make further determinations.
And so in terms of including the arts in the title of the goal, should we hold on that until tomorrow and come back to that tomorrow?
They'll see it tomorrow.
Excellent, very good. And then if Jim is here from Parks and Rec. Jim, you heard a lot here. Anything that you want to respond to in terms of any of the comments or suggestions or requests that council has made? And don't feel like you need to, but I want to give you the opportunity. Yeah. Oh, you'll go ahead.
I always feel like if I'm in the room, I want to represent Parks and Recreation really well as the arts. The city has done a lot of studies over the last 6+ years, and so just want to give a shout out on the aged infrastructure issue that we have in the city, touching upon the city manager's comments. Let's take a look at that and see how we can make sure that we're, as others have said, funding and making sure that the existing park infrastructure is supporting our residents, our current residents. We do have a lot of new park land as well as park facilities are coming on board through the residential housing. We are using Quimby Act fees for rehabilitation of some of our existing park infrastructure. So it's an exciting time, but we do need to make sure that it's coming online kind of in balance. So that would be my comments.
Good, excellent, very good. Any questions for Jim, reactions? Yes.
Director Teixeira, has the the Parks and Rec Commission, have they started talking about the Central Park North? I had heard that they might start talking about it at the end of 2019.
Correct. In the 2019-2020 work plan for the Park and Rec Commission, one of the things is to start looking at a schedule, and I believe in our work plan that there is a proposed schedule on how we're going to start taking a look at that. Also, in terms of funding through the related project, and based on the timing of how they bring in their DAPs or whatever they call them, that there is a $500,000 which is for design and engineering, and then only $4.5 million for construction. So obviously, at 20+ acres of development on that site, that's not going to fund very much. So it would have to be a phased approach. So perhaps master plan followed by some minor facilities, and then finding out where the rest of the funding would come from.
Thank you very much.
Anything else for Director Teixeira? Okay, anything else on this goal here? And we'll return to the discussion of the arts in terms of including that in the goal pillar tomorrow after the budget presentation, but anything else at this point? Okay, now I think is a good time for a break. Okay, let's take a break, and if we could reconvene here at 10 after, and then we'll move into goal pillar number 3.
Understand that there's a process where not all of this stuff stays on the list.
Oh, yeah,
This is
yeah,
visioning.
yeah.
Because I know Raj is going to think that the shuttles are due.
Yeah, yeah,
Arts is due, the
yeah.
TOT. So I asked Nadine and Kendra to start really
Yeah,
tracking all of this.
yeah.
So tomorrow during the council referral, when we look at the work referrals,
Yeah.
we ask them what, right? Because this is resources
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, absolutely.
Good.
And the other thing that I'm hearing
Like, let's
here,
just put it all on the wall,
Yeah,
see how it
yeah,
reconciles. Let's not stop the creative flow.
Wait for everybody to get back to the table.
I did. Oh, thank you.
So I
We love IT.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so Manuel is very busy. I thought 3 phones. My goodness, I can't keep track of one, but okay, 2, only 2. All right. Yeah, 3 phones, 1 for each job that he has. Okay, so we're moving forward and just checking in with council as we're going through this visioning exercise here. We will circle back with the items that are being introduced, and we'll circle back with you tomorrow when we move through the budget presentation and the referrals. What specifically do you want to give staff direction on to go do research to bring back to you? Items, because we're not in decision-making mode today, right? We're in a visioning exercise today, so there isn't. We're not making a decision of giving staff direction to come back with this item, but we will do that tomorrow, and we'll solidify all of that tomorrow afternoon. But let's continue on with the visioning portion here, and we're moving on to a goal, pillar number 3: deliver and enhance high-quality, efficient services and infrastructure. And I didn't hear any overall assessments. I'm looking at the interview summary. What I did hear was, starting off, SVP continues to be a major asset and success story for the city. The 2020 bond parcel tax mentioned again as important to expand library hours in addition to your infrastructure maintenance and upgrades. And then another revenue generating item here, given that you have high-touch services provided by the city, and as Council Member O'Neill said, you have a city that has high expectations in terms of service delivery. Consider more cost recovery measures to help pay for them. Review and enforce traffic mitigation efforts. Particularly on the north side, we discussed traffic under goal pillar number 1. We also discussed the public-private partnerships for shuttles. We also discussed that under item number 1 as well. A new item here, where are you all? Where is staff, for example, on the status of RV parking in the city? And then noise from San Jose International Airport. What's the status of that and what can be accomplished there? So some very specific items. So just taking a step back and looking, delivering and enhancing high quality, efficient services and infrastructure. What are your thoughts about that? How is, from your perspective, is that still an important goal and pillar? How is staff doing in implementing tasks and objectives around that? And where do you want to take that for 2020? Councilmember Watanabe.
Thank you, Sean. Wow, there's a lot of different issues here that are important to the city, but also to the north side as well. And I mean, I know that I can speak to that a lot better than how some of these things may affect the other parts of the city. But I mean, we're very fortunate, you know, that Silicon Valley Power is here in Santa Clara because it has proven to be a very major asset in our city, especially with the recent PG&E outages, blackouts, and so whereas Santa Clara was able to stay lit up, so we were very, very fortunate. And I hope that, as we explore the bond with parcel tax to help with the infrastructure, and as we, even just touch upon these issues, that we see really that the city and will and residents, will understand, the importance of, of a bond or a parcel tax as we continue to explore it. Skipping ahead to, the gridlock in the north side, I mean, that's, has been identified as an area where, we have the ability to grow and continue to provide the residents that is needed in our city, affordability of at all levels. And so I know that Director Moback, has presented to us regarding, projects that are coming on board as we continue to expand, and they have plans in place. But we need to make sure that we are looking ahead, looking outside the box, and looking at finding all ways to be able to mitigate, whether it's public transportation or the bike ped trails, whatever can be done, and continue to also focus on that area as being, a place to live, work, and play, which would definitely have an impact on traffic, be a traffic mitigation actually in itself. Regarding, I had this as actually as part of the goal setting, but if we could get an update on the RV parking in the city. I know we had a study session on that in the past, and council was waiting for staff to come back with an update on that, but it is, I'm sure there are other parts of the city where it's an issue, but definitely in the north side, Hope Drive, I drove by there yesterday just to take a picture, and there were 9 RVs parked out there, but I've heard from talking to residents recently that there have been as many as 13 at times. And with the increase in car break-ins recently in the area, it's a concern. And so it's an issue that continually needs to be looked at. I know other cities are looking at the same issue right now. It's hard because I mean, you have to be humane. You have to understand that there is a reason that they're there, but at the same time, it does have an impact on the city, on city services, and so we need to see what we can do to help mitigate that issue and keep our neighborhoods safe, but keep those people safe as well. Find ways to keep them safe and address their issues that that are living in RVs or even in their cars. The biggest issue I think I have right now is as a council person, I feel like that it's at the top of my list is the noise at San Jose Airport, and I'm really happy that the representatives from Townsend and Associates are here today, because I was just speaking with them during the break, and to find out that one of the issues that they're working on is transportation infrastructure. And so I'm really excited to know that, the city will now have an additional resource that we could use to help in focusing on this issue, because with the expansion of San Jose Mineta Airport, the San Jose City Council making a decision about that, a final decision in the next month. And, as I talked to my residents over the last couple of weeks, I went out and met with several HOAs to find out about how its airport noise is impacting them. And it is having a tremendous impact all hours of the night now, it seems, and as well as when the curfew is lifted at 6:31 in the morning. The city, I appreciate the fact that the city has agreed to be a part of the airport roundtable, which is, 15 cities in the area that are meeting, on a monthly or bi-monthly basis to address the issue. But we still need to work with our federal representatives. I know Congressman Khanna is engaged and a part of a caucus in Washington to continue to work on this issue. But it's hard because you're dealing with the FAA, you're dealing with cities. It's an economic impact for some, but at the same time, it has an negative impact on the community as well. So I know it's not something that can be solved overnight, but I appreciate the fact that the city is looking at the issue and what can be accomplished, especially again for the quality of life for our residents.
Council member, is there anything else that at this time that you would like to see accomplished on the airport noise, or do you feel like things are in place to move it forward?
I think things are in place, and I feel like now as we are getting more resources on board, that it will help give us direction and how we can work with the community. I mean, I am working with the community right now on how and getting them more actively engaged, but I think as we just sit down and explore the issue as a city, I mean, we need to sit down as a city. And see what other cities have done. I know there's a lot of resources, a lot of information out there. Now that we have some, Townsend and Associates working with the city, I think it gives us opportunity to explore what we could possibly do to protect the quality of life of our residents.
Very good. Mayor Gilmore.
Thank you. Just to follow up on this one and to talk about infrastructure and services, I think one of the most important things is the age of our infrastructure and the condition. That's something we need to continue to be aware of, and in terms of deferred maintenance and costs and those types of things that are really important for us to maintain our infrastructure. We also need to constantly improve the quality of services and open City Hall to make it easier for our residents to interact with our City Hall, whether it's online or in person, because people's lives are getting so busy now, and they may need to get their permits or other things from City Hall, and we have to make sure it's an easy and as efficient process as possible for our residents, so we need to continue with that. One thing that we haven't really focused on in our goal-setting session, we've talked about it just a little bit, is what's happening now with public safety in Santa Clara, and with the rash of car break-ins, home break-ins, and property crimes, that looking at, I know we're going to have a new police chief and sitting there over there. Hopefully he's listening. The proactive policing, I think, is what our citizens are looking for, because those crimes are affecting all of us. I remember Councilmember O'Neill, something stolen from her porch. I had both my cars broken into. Councilmember Davis had her car. I mean, it's affecting all of us and everyone in property crime. So I like to see what we can do to put resources there to be proactive, to protect our citizens. And that's something that we haven't, fortunately haven't had to do very much in the past. But I think it's at the level where we need a lot of attention on that matter. And then, of course, providing the quality services and from Silicon Valley Power and everything that our residents expect and that they deserve. I mean, that's the top of our list of what we're supposed to do for our citizens. So just keeping on top of that, but responding to things that are happening and being fluid and doing that, but getting a really good idea of the condition of our infrastructure is very important.
Excellent. Good. Let's go to Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Sean. Well, you'll be happy that I'm not going to add a word to this one. So I'm good with the infrastructure, but I agree with the mayor as far as the public safety has risen to another level. And we did receive a grant for the car break-ins and stuff. We just seem to be a target with some other cities because of the way our infrastructure is. with the highways. It's easy for people to get off highways, go into these shopping centers of ours, break things down and go away. And their technology is even better now. I mean, they can even tell if you have an iPad in your car. So it's like one of these things, we tell our people to hide things, but now the bad guys are even better at it. You know, they know how to Bluetooth you now and know that it's in your car. So we have to figure out how we can, it's like a cat and mouse game. It's like, we'll do this, but then they're gonna do this. So the level is heightened. And so that, I agree with that 100%. I do the water in the city. That's kind of like my job. And when I see that we're aging, we are aging, you know, I'm a baby boomer. My internal pipes aren't as good as, you know, other pipes. So I look at our infrastructure and we've had things break and it's kind of like, okay, how do we fix this? And we don't need the Band-Aid approach, but how are we going to, where's that money gonna come? Because some of the things that when they uncover things, when Craig Mulvac and these people go out and they unearth the blacktop and underneath is asbestos and tape and wire and all kinds of things that it scares you, you know, how it was built. And we do have a very old city. I'm worried about the water only because I think that we need to enhance the purple pipe that we have and to keep, you know, that's a big deliverable, I think, for our city is the recycled water. We don't know with climate change, we don't know what's gonna happen. I attend the Valley Water meetings and that a lot of people are worried about the environment. They're worried about the sustainability and climate change and what's going to happen. Fortunately, we've been okay with the snowpacks and what's happening, but at the same time, with that comes CIP, comes with how are you going to fix the infrastructure? How are you going to seismically retrofit things? And we do have a lot of that in our city that wasn't really there before. And it could go on buildings and other things of that nature. But I'm more concerned about the water because people are concerned about the water and where it's going to come from. We live in an arid area. We're kind of not totally like the Middle East, but we're California, and things are changing. So I'm concerned about that. I think that our Silicon Valley power is a huge asset. I mean, people would love to live in Santa Clara because of the rates. And we do deliver on that. I know the lights do come back on a little bit faster than everybody else. We are not subject to the brownouts, but at the same time, it's like, how do we keep that infrastructure with development and traffic and, you know, the whole thing? It's like, there are a lot of things that go into these equations. So this triggers a lot of different things that the quality of life, like Kathy, you know, she lives in that Northside area, and that's where we're developing a lot. We do have purple pipes up there. People are okay. They don't really get too upset about if the garbage is picked up or the water's on, but one day that might not be there for them because we keep growing. So if we're not aware of our surroundings and the environment and what's happening to us, we have to figure out some kind of strategy where we can self-sustain ourselves. And we need to put the money into that budget. So I think that it's crucial, again, to find the money for these capital improvement projects to keep us competitive, to keep us, you know, going and keep looking at what's coming at us on a daily basis. You know, because like I said before, we get these drive-bys. Oh yeah, this big pipe just broke and it's 70 inches wide, and we're just like, oh wow, okay, so what does that mean? And then people are saying, what about my water and what's going to happen? And so those are kind of things where communication comes in.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get better at, you know, you're not impacted. We do have that e-notify. The city manager has been trying, but you know, we need to get to that next level, as the mayor has kind of alluded to. We've come to the point where we're sustaining, but you know, we need to be a little bit more proactive in some aspects. So those are just my comments. Thank you.
Excellent, very good. Councilmember O'Neill.
Thank you. I'd like to amplify a little bit on the comments that Councilmember Watanabe made about the issues with RVs. We do have on the work plan under this goal to look at, you know, the shelter and resources for those experiencing homelessness. So, you know, it's something I've been kind of involved with for a long time, and we all know we're not making the progress that we should. And I think I'm starting to, there is a growing level of concern, and I think, unfortunately, like with the RVs, there are folks that are living in RVs that are going to work. VTA has employees that come and park their RVs on VTA lots so that they, because they don't have any local housing, and so they go home on the weekends. But now, we're starting to hear people being more concerned about what's going on in our creeks, and I think in the past it's always been kind of beyond the borders of Santa Clara, but I think even along Calabasas Creek, out by Mission College. I mean, there's been a variety of issues that we've worked on. And I have felt like that part of the problem has been that we don't have a social service agency that's really focused on delivering nonprofit-based services in Santa Clara. But I know now that the Salvation Army over here on Homestead Road, they have committed to putting more resources into Santa Clara. They're actually looking for a couple case managers to deal with homelessness in Santa Clara. I would like to see us perhaps have, maybe we ask the Housing Rehabilitation Loan Committee or some other group to kind of look at, what more can we do? What can we do? I know the city attorney has asked me, please don't let a lot of folks come in and park on city property, because then, it's very difficult then if you need to have them leave. But I think that we are at a point where we do need to be looking at that, and how can we partner with, whether it's, St. Justin's Community Ministry, whether it's Salvation Army, whether it's Sunnyvale Community Services, who have been picking up some of the slack that Santa Clara hasn't, or we have not provided services, and the other members of like the Emergency Assistance Network, to figure out what can we do. And I know that the police department has really been carrying a lot of the load. It was Lieutenant Fitting for a long time, and now he's gone on to another assignment. But that unit in the police department has had to carry a lot of the load for Santa Clara in terms of trying to help people who are either in the that are living in their cars or RVs, or in our creeks or in our parks, or underneath the eaves here at the library. So I would like to ask that we look at somehow, creating a task force, and it's just as a suggestion, perhaps through the housing committee that we already have.
Excellent, very good. Good. Councilmember Hardy.
Thank you. When I think about the airport, I used to live north of Bayshore, and I know it's gotten much worse. I know the John Wayne Airport in Anaheim has very strict mitigation procedures for how they take off and land. And it is because it is over completely residential. And I'm wondering if we can look, because those are in place already, and even the pilot will tell you, we are doing certain things right now to mitigate the effects on the neighbors. And we may be at that point where we need to request that. I'm going to quote a movie. It says, indoor plumbing, it's going to be big. I love electricity, but our infrastructure of our water and our sewer, you will notice right away if we have a problem. And I think that needs to, when we talk about efficient and infrastructure, that is critical, that we make that a priority. Because we've done such a good job with our electricity, I think sometimes we forget, and I would agree with Councilmember Davis. The roads, we're moving to vehicle miles traveled instead of looking at just intersections and level of service. And I have pushed for and asked for the idea of left lagging lights, so that because we have so much traffic going in one direction in the morning and going the other direction in the evening, that we could, what that does is it puts a priority for your pipeline of your traffic going in one direction, and it helps bicycles and pedestrians, but allows left-hand turn to occur during that possibility, and you have an option of turning left and then only having a dedicated left if there are still vehicles in that turning lane. And I've seen some numbers that I'm really encouraged over. I'd love to look at that more.
And what
safety.
What is that called?
It's called left lagging lights, LAGGING. Obviously, public safety, we love living here and want to feel safe, and we have seen some real problems. And in conjunction with that, the My Santa Clara app, I have encouraged people to, take pictures and turn in reports, give information. But we have just a few things with the app that I think are hurting our quality and efficiency of our services, because once staff looks at that, they will mark it as complete, even though they still may be in process. And the residents are furious because they're like, all you did was answer me back what's been done. So I think that's just a messaging of in process. And we also have a great list of things, but we don't have an other category. If some concern doesn't fit under those very strict criteria, residents say, where do I put this? It doesn't work. And we want to make certain that I encourage people to use that app because it helps us to focus our resources. And I think 3 and 4 go together almost as the way we handle this. And I want to help those residents to help us do our job and help our employees to do their job. Also, we have rolled out the new website, which I think is good because many of our aging population is kind of afraid of apps on phones. I don't know why. I've tried to work with them. But the website, making that user-friendly and easier to navigate, especially for someone who doesn't see or hear well, or remembers seeing their first TV and thinks there's demons inside the computers. It's called the digital divide when you don't have any other way. And they also may need a way to just phone up and get a complaint or something handled. Thank you.
Excellent, very good. Councilmember Chahal.
Thank you. So most of it has been said, but I'll touch base. Infrastructure, like I know we need to do a long-term study of that because all these projects are capital intensive, and we need to do a deep dive and find out where we stand. I think right now we are doing very reactive. Some emergencies come, we do a good job, but it's more of a reactive action than really analyzing, these are really our critical issues, so let's prioritize how we can do those. That's one. Car break-ins is another big issue, as Mayor said about it. So I know we got some grant from the state. I need to find out what did we do with that grant to alleviate car break-ins and other stuff. Airport noise, it is really a quality of life issue for residents on the flight path. And there are several controversial issues on that. The way the noise is calculated, like peak versus average noise, the methodology itself is very wrong. So I know FAA sets those standards and all that stuff, but we as a collaborative city with other cities who are impacted with that, I think we have to write directly to FAA. I know we are working with Congressman Rokana on that, but it has gone to a level that we need to write them directly. These are the issues, and collaborate with our neighboring cities. If letter goes directly from us, that's one thing. And I think the San Jose has upcoming meetings for the approval. I know we sent EIR letters to them. I would request if our actual staff member can go there and emphasize how big an issue this is for our residents. That would be great, our physical presence during those meetings. Excellent. That would be great. On the other thing, traffic mitigation efforts. Like one thing I would like to emphasize, like we should explore smart city initiatives, IoT, what these things can reduce the traffic signaling issues, one light at a time, basically. So those are the initiatives which you need to look at it, what other cities have done in Europe and other stuff. So those are the important things to be taken care of. RV issue, right? I know it has been emphasized RVs in the neighborhood, but in my district, I've got several complaints that RVs are, even in the industrial areas where businesses are, there are a lot of issues of cleanliness, aesthetics issues. So this we has a policy matter. We need to look at it, how we can take care of it as a policy matter and how we can resolve this thing. Okay. I know we already covered the shuttle part of it, the free shuttle part in the previous one, but I'll be more than happy to collaborate. I already spoken to Cupertino and Mountain View leaderships, and I'll be more than happy to bring those teams to the council meeting on an agenda so that they can present how difficult or easy it is, especially via Cupertino, and I would be more than happy to drive that, and so that we put this thing on priority on those things. Yeah. Thank you.
Excellent, very good. Councilmember Davis, did you weigh in on this one?
Yeah, on the water check. Remember?
That's right.
With
yes.
With
the pot.
infrastructure.
How could I have forgotten that? My goodness. Okay. It's all coming back to me now.
I'm sorry, I had to make that.
Thank you. Very good. Okay, so let's give staff just a chance to respond back a little bit. Let's start with the infrastructure. It seemed to really rise and was a lot of attention here on infrastructure, maintenance, and then the big question, of course, is revenue. How are you going to pay for your maintenance and your upgrade? So update on that. Where are you on infrastructure? Deanna, if Craig wants to weigh in.
I'll start where the mayor started, is it really gets down to our financials. And tomorrow, you will hear a presentation, and I think Councilmember Shahal was spot on in terms of the being reactive. A lot of it you will see is it flows from the past practice in terms of how we fund capital projects and infrastructure improvements. And we don't have a dedicated source. And tomorrow, as you see the big picture of how we're trending for the next 5 years for capital investments, it really speaks to the revenue strategy that we need, the infrastructure bond or any type of revenue that comes through a measure, so that we can begin to move to the long term. And that's, I can give you a brief highlight, but the budget is very, very tight, and it's, we have $1 billion worth of needs and just a couple of $1 million of cash available to invest. And so I'm looking forward to that conversation tomorrow. I don't know, Craig, if you want to add any more, or Manuel. I was looking for Gary when
He's here.
I wanted to send him a smile.
Water guy.
He's hiding back there.
He spoke to us.
Hiding.
Yeah.
Storm drain system.
Yep, Craig Mobeck, Director of Public Works. So yes, as Deanna mentioned, there are a number of infrastructure needs. Just like every city, a lot of aging infrastructure, whether it's roadways, utilities, and some components of our city. In the past, we've had very proactive maintenance programs, but there's been quite a few that we have not. And so one of the goals that I've been working on since I've been here now for a couple years is identify all those programs that we really didn't lay out for maintenance, whether it was storm drains, roadways, parking lots, alleyways, creek trails. There's quite a number of them. And as Deanna mentioned, in the budget, we've identified kind of what all those areas are. Paving always comes up. We do get gas tax funds, Measure B, SB1, but there is quite a bit of shortfall in terms of what our needs are and what all that money is bringing in. And so the budget will also go through that. There's quite a few bits of infrastructure. Sidewalks is one that we replace on a regular basis for residents, and there's a growing need with that as well. So the numbers will be shown. There was quite a bit more asked than there are budget, and so that's where we'll be going through to bring that up to you.
Craig, can I ask you to comment a little bit on our CPI and how we're trending with respect to the amount of dollars available for investment in pothole and street repair.
Sure. So on the pavement condition index. So that is our rating that we utilize for the street condition. And so that is very challenging maintaining that. Our goal has been that council setup was a 75. I had done a presentation about a year and a half ago on what level of funding is required to meet that need. And part of this budget will see what additional dollars we would need to potentially meet that 75, and it's quite significant. We get about just over $6 million worth those revenue streams that I mentioned to put towards our paving program, and in about 5 years, we estimate that we'd be unfunded in probably $45 million worth of projects. So what that means is not that everything's going to fall apart. It means that pavement condition index starts to go. And once it starts to get lower, it is very difficult to bring back in short time. You need a lot of money to do that. So we had spent, I think in years past, 5, 10 years ago, the number was really high. Well, there was a lot of short-term maintenance slurry seals, so just very inexpensive, and they bolster up that PCI number very quickly. But because of the full rehab wasn't done, then the number starts to fall off. So that's what we're seeing now, and so more money is required into that program.
Yes. A quick question on that. Like, I know we have a lot of big funding holes on this one. So if I may ask, if you may not answer right now, that's okay. Like we have a neighboring cities, they are also almost the same aging issues what we are facing. How they are doing for these infrastructure budgets down the line? Do they have budgets, or they're in the same shape where we are, or if they're having some different approach with, if they're doing better than us?
Yeah, so every city is roughly in the same state in trying to maintain the infrastructure. Some cities have made commitments to put large amounts of general fund to try and bolster the number and fund that program, but it's a challenge for everybody. And so we're looking at different means of rehab. We're looking at more cost-effective means. So one of the things that we've tried is new types of maintenance seals in recent pavement projects, and we're going to monitor to see how those go, and maybe we start doing them. But every city is in the same position we are. This infrastructure, a lot of it was built by developers through development projects, so it really wasn't costing the city when it was built in the 60s and 70s with the subdivisions and things. Now that maintenance is coming due, and it is on the cities to maintain it, so it is very difficult.
Okay, Gary, you want to comment? Let's talk water.
So before I talk on water, I wanted to mention add a little bit to what Craig had mentioned on stormwater. So Water and Sewer manages 22 stormwater pump stations, and those pump stations are antiquated, to say the least. What's unusual about this city is the money for storm drain maintenance is mostly coming out of the general fund. It's, like I said, very unusual. A lot of cities have parcel taxes in place. Some cities have 1 or 2 parcel taxes where they're funding storm drain maintenance. There's funding pump stations. So, I've been out to a number of the pump stations that we have here that are really important for flood control throughout the city. And, some of these are over 50 years old, the motor controls, the pumps themselves. And so all of that infrastructure needs to really be upgraded, seeing it firsthand during rain events. So I just wanted to kind of emphasize the need for improving the stormwater infrastructure. On the water and sewer side, we have rate structures in place and for recycled water too. So we have that funding mechanism. But I will mention the infrastructure for water and sewer. We do have a number of projects. Our vertical assets, which are our tanks, we have a $9.3 million project right now. We've hired a company called Paso Robles to do the construction. We finished design. So that's our last series of tanks, the Sarah tanks, to be upgraded. The horizontal or below grade assets, which would be the distribution lines that Councilmember Davis mentioned, we don't have a formal asset management program, but we have an RFP out right now to implement that program. And so we want to create an asset hierarchy and then do a risk assessment of all the lines and then implement replacement of those lines. We We also have a sustainable water master plan RFP out on the street. The last master plan was 2002. It was complete. So that's needed. We'll integrate where our supplies are, what the needs are going to be through 2040, and we'll look at recycled water as part of that. The recycled water portion, we are working. We have a number. We're working with San Jose, South Bay Water Recycling. We do have a limitation right now in supply. We've kind of reached our capacity, so we're negotiating with them to get additional supply. We've got a series of projects that we've approved, and so they're just kind of queuing up. A lot of data centers are requesting recycled water. So we're at about 20% use of recycled water for our total water portfolio, thanks to Councilmember Davis' champion with Valley Water. And so it's very unusual that a city has that percentage, and so it's really great. So we're trying to expand that and try to keep as much recycled water use so we can supplant potable water use and imported water supplies. I wanted to mention too on the sanitary sewer, because that was mentioned. We are in the process of doing a complete condition assessment of sewer, and so we're actually in better shape. We know we had that issue on Lafayette. We have completed CCTV of all of our large lines, so we're going to do some lining, but most of it is in pretty decent shape. We have, Public Works has a couple large projects right now, about $2 to $3 million projects that are going to finish up on repairs. So we're finished about 80, by March of 2021, we'll have completed all the condition assessment on the sanitary sewer line. So, and then we'll do some additional repairs. So I think on the sewer side, we're actually in really good shape. So.
Questions for Director Welling?
No, just a compliment. He's doing a heck of a job.
Good. Excellent.
And your last name is perfect.
Yeah, I know.
It's perfect. Just love it.
Excellent. Let's just talk a little bit about the RV parking and where that is, and then Councilmember O'Neill broadened that out to really around homelessness as an issue. And so where is staff? Is that, are we ready for an update on the RV parking? Is that in play for council?
I will need to get back to the council on a date or a time frame.
Okay, very good. And proactive policing, property crimes. Chief Winter, we want to speak to that? And so the concern here was the car theft, the, I don't mean not important, but low-level property crimes that are happening, and what's being done from PD's perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And no one wants to see the auto burglary problem get fixed more than the police department. It is a Bay Area-wide problem. It's impacting cities all over the Bay Area, and our city in particular is being targeted because of all the high-tech businesses that we have in town, because of all the business lunches that take place along in our shopping centers, along the expressways, along the freeways. Criminals are targeting our areas because they know that our folks come here for business meetings, they bring their laptops with them, their iPads with them, their services with them, and they leave them in the car when they go to lunch. So we are taking a multi-pronged approach at this problem. As was mentioned, thanks to Kansan Chu, he lobbied for us and got us $750,000 worth of state funding. We are putting that state funding to work as we speak. I put officers out on overtime every night to patrol our shopping centers. Our officers are taxed with a lot of different assignments. We are, when we get up to full staff, we'll be coming back asking for additional officers. As you know, we're always looking to expand the number of officers that we have on patrol. But we put officers every night on overtime out there in the shopping centers to try and prevent some of these auto burglaries from occurring. In addition, we're taking a multi-agency approach. The 5 cities that obtained the funding from Kansan Chu are working together. We are putting out public service announcements, Bay Area-wide. We're purchasing advertising because there's an education piece of this. We need the citizens to help us out and not leave those items in their car. So that is huge. We're working with our shopping centers, getting more signage as seen up in Rivermark, just telling people do not leave items in your car. That's the #1 key point. In addition, We need to see stiffer penalties for folks when we do catch them. When they do get caught, they need to actually be punished for the crimes that they committed. Otherwise, they'll just continue to commit those crimes. So I know that the city has a legislative platform going forward, and I'm sure that they will. It was in our police department one to lobby for stiffer penalties for these property crimes, so that those will reduce from there. We are working with our district attorney's office. Our district attorney's office has committed resources to us, including a crime analyst, so that when arrests are made, we can connect the dots and find out where that they have committed these crimes throughout the Bay Area, because they don't just go to one city. Believe it or not, this is some folks' jobs, is to start and just commit auto burglaries down the Bay Area and return home. So we have to have crime analyst, a district attorney that's dedicated to it, and they have dedicated resources. And then lastly, we need to work with the fencing operations. This is quick money for these folks. They're stealing these items, the phones, the laptops, and they're turning them over to a fence for quick money, $100, $200, and we're seeing pallets of that equipment being shipped overseas. So we need help from our federal partners to look at the shipping corridors and where they're shipping these items out overseas. So it's not an easy problem. There is no quick solution. We believe our patrols that are occurring nightly are helping to slowly reduce it. You'll notice if you go into many of our shopping centers throughout town, you'll see signs on the wall from us, our flyers on the wall saying, please do not leave items in your car. So we want to see it reduce, and we'll continue to work at it every day. Yes, Mayor.
Thank you, Assistant Chief Winter. Some of the ways the crimes, as you probably know, are evolving is, and I've seen some reports on Nextdoor and some social media about these criminals being very bold. And so when there's a resident, a particularly elderly resident, shopping at a grocery store or somewhere, they're actually coming and taking purses from their grocery carts or car keys out of their hands and running and things like that. So I'm particularly interested in an education process for everyone, not just don't leave your stuff in your car, but be even careful when you're in these stores. And I don't know, what reports you've gotten in the police department of that, and, how much is this, just starting now? Has it been happening for a while? But, educating even our retail business owners to educate their customers as they come in, or to be watchful or something like that. I mean, like a proactive, concerted effort to educate everybody about what's happening, and when you go in a store, don't leave your purse and your bag in the cart and things like that. So I don't know what kind of information you've gotten in the police department about these types of crimes.
No, absolutely. They're getting more bold in the crimes they're committing. A recent trend we're seeing, and Councilmember Watanabe seen it up at Rivermark, is that in the morning now, it used to be more of a nighttime crime when it got dark, but now as someone that has use their app to purchase their coffee on their phone, parks for 30 seconds to run into Starbucks, they're smashing the window within that 30 seconds and stealing the purse off the front seat. And we are working with our shop owners, our shopping centers. They're coming into our police department for meetings. We're trying to get them to educate those folks, but they are definitely becoming more bold in different ways, yeah.
Yes.
I want to thank Assistant Chief Winters, because he did come and talk with the women's service group here in town and shared with that, and we've been working to share even more of that information. And I know I was very inspired by your talk, and for this women's service group luncheon, we have to put together collections of items, and I put together a protect yourself kit. So I'm trying to get that idea of do what you can and make yourself less of a target.
Correct.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Assistant Chief Winter, I want to express as well thanks for all that the police department is doing, because I know that it's not an easy job, and I always feel terrible when I'm texting you telling you there have been 2 more break-ins in Rivermark Plaza this morning, and because people, they're doing exactly what you said. They're leaving their items in their car, they run in to get their coffee, and boom, they come back and their car's been broken into. And Teslas, it sounds like, are a common target as well. But I want to just something that we're looking into because of the fact that Rivermark seems to have been targeted. It's not that to say that the rest of Santa Clara isn't targeted, but I think as leaders, we have to help, work with the police department and be proactive ourselves and working with our communities. And so, we are exploring the Neighborhood Watch program. And I think that it's an effective tool that maybe a lot of neighborhoods have forgotten about, and maybe as leaders we need to look into as well and start to promote that. I know there will be a meeting on February 12th at the Northside substation with Officer Shearer and Community Service Officer Mike Robinson, and we've got residents, wanting to be a part of that and be proactive in their community because the police can't be everywhere. But we are there, so might as well use our own resources. And also, I appreciate the fact I hadn't heard about the rental cars. Rental cars the police department has been reaching out to the rental car agencies and getting them to promote, what they can do to protect themselves while they're here using rental cars and not having the cars broken into because they are targeted and putting out information. So I hope that's still an ongoing process. And also just want to thank you again for the substation open house a couple of weeks ago because there have, again, a lot of break-ins in the north side, and it was an opportunity for folks to come out and talk to, all the officers and yourself and just get some peace of mind and just talk about what they can do to be proactive in helping themselves. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. And I believe that Neighborhood Watch meeting got started at that open house up there.
Exactly.
So it did. And we do work with the auto rental companies. We provided them with a letter, asked them to give it to every person that rents a car from them, let them know, hey, do not leave valuables visible in your car at all, or hopefully not in your car at all. So we do still work with the rental car companies.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Anything else? Yes.
Thank you, Assistant Chief Winter, for answering the question about the state aid we are getting. On question, I know it's pointed out because of the state rules and regulations, anything under 1,000 is not considered prosecutable, bare minimum, any penalties. And most of the time, the stuff being stolen are the laptops. So can we do something at city level or our PD level that we can add like contents? Laptop itself may be only $500, but the content inside the data and the content inside are very valuable. So can we increase that penalty or prosecution? Have we spoken to the DA for that? Like how we can make it, add some teeth to it so that we prosecute these people who are doing all this thing again and again?
Yeah, and I hear you referring to if the value of the item is over $950, it does turn into a felony. Below $950, it's a misdemeanor. I have not spoken to the DA specifically on that topic, if we can count the software inside or some of the intellectual property that's inside on the computer and whether that would increase the value of that particular item. I can definitely bring that up with our district attorney. If there's other means to get that, if it's been saved somewhere else, they may not fully buy onto that idea, but I can definitely have that conversation with our district attorney.
Is there anything we can do? I'm not sure, like at the city level?
I don't believe so. These are state crimes, and it's the state that created these crimes. So other than lobby on behalf of the city and ask the state legislature to increase penalties for property crimes, which I think is one of the positions the city's going to take going forward. Other than that, I don't know.
Thank you.
Chief, I just wanted to say that the tag on Kathy. Her area is greatly impacted by what's going on, and most of it is happening up by her. But the open house was extremely successful, and I know that we do that National Night Out, but is there a way maybe that we should have more, not more National Night Out, but a little bit more like monthly kind of things happening in that area as an educational tool where they visit you at the, at that substation up there? Because that area, it really is impacted, and that's where we hear most of the complaints coming from, businesses and people alike. But is there some way we could add that to your budget or something where we have a little bit more open house or a little bit, not to add on to the national, but to have a little bit more time with the community? I know you do the chat with the chief or whatever that is. But a lot of people can't get to something like that. But the open house was on a Saturday before this, the game, which was kind of like a weird timing, but you had so many people there. And then the library, thank you, Hillary, for having an event there. So there were so many people there. It was like a mini downtown kind of thing happening. It was great, and people were very happy because they were able to communicate with our staff, people that were there, and you guys. And so to me, I thought it was phenomenal what happened there. I had never seen anything like that other than a street dance or concert, but that's more community engagement to me that we need to emphasize and put out there. So I was just wondering if we could add more of that in that neighborhood, in Kathy's neighborhood, because she's up there and she's advocating all the time, and she needs some help. So
I think I actually brought that up and said, could we do this on an annual basis? Because
Yeah.
it was wonderful. The Lunar New Year at the library and the open house was wonderful.
Some kind of coordination with, all the staff, all the directors, or anything that we could put out there that, for advocacy and education, communication. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. Thank you. I thought it was a great thing. So.
Yeah, absolutely. We can look at adding more events up there for sure, and working with Hillary and the library and coordinating some events where we open up that substation. We do Coffee with a Cop. We've done Coffee with a Cop up there recently up at Rivermark at the Pete's there, where we just hang out and have coffee with the folks and talk to them and talked about the issues. We can add more of those up there. We do what's called a talk-in tour that we've done at the main police station. There's no reason we can't do talk-in tours up at the Northside substation, so we can add that as a location for those. So there's certainly opportunities to have more community engagement. Yeah.
I just want to clarify that these crimes are happening all over town.
Yeah.
I know that you're focused on Rivermark, and I know Mercado, Santa Clara Square. It's all over town.
It is.
So I just wanted to clarify that that's not the only area of town, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah. It's happening all over, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, very good. Anything else for Assistant Chief Winter? There were a couple other items that surfaced in your conversation. There's the airport noise, and things are moving forward on that, and progress is being made. There's the additional suggestion there might be some best practice from John Wayne Airport in Orange County that might help in terms of noise mitigation. There was also the discussion of providing services to the community online in an efficient way, and some suggestions that came up there was taking another look at your website in terms of making that more accessible. And then there were a couple tweaks to the My Santa Clara app on the, when is it actually complete? When is the community referral request complete? And there might be another other category in there. And then we did talk again about traffic and gridlock, continuation from our earlier conversation this morning. Opened up the need from your perspective, really important on the bikes and trails as a way to reduce traffic. And this was on the north side, but also citywide. And then there was the suggestion of looking into left lagging lights as another suggestion. So missing anything there? Anything else to add on to your high quality services and infrastructure discussion? Everybody good? Okay, looking at the clock, we're 10 after 12. Is now a good time to break for lunch?
I think we should hear from the public.
Let's hear from the...
And then we'll break for lunch.
Perfect, yes.
Cards here.
And let me give you one more to add to the mix.
I know they've been patiently waiting.
Yes.
So first, Alex Shore, if you'd like to come forward, followed by Dan Ondrzek. Good afternoon.
Is it that time already? Afternoon? Wow.
Last morning.
Thank you all so much for being here. We're happy to talk with the council and staff about community engagement, which is a major part of our mission as a nonprofit organization. We're focused on engaging the community more in the development process to get as much housing and as good a development as possible in cities in Silicon Valley. And one of the ways we do that is through working with cities on its community engagement process. We've had a chance to talk with you as a council about that before, and just wanted to offer 3 potential options for how to enhance community engagement when you're talking to neighbors about the development process. We think with these 3 ways, you could go in one or more directions. One of those is to hire and train staff such as community engagement specialists who are embedded within specific departments or in the city manager's department who can serve as, if you will, in-house consultants who can facilitate public meetings, who can help housing, community development, public works, and your other departments anytime they're going out into the community and talking about what's going to affect the built environment, how the community is going to physically change. Those community engagement specialists can serve as in-house folks to help plan that process for you as a city, both plan the strategy and then execute on it, and provide ongoing training and technical assistance to their colleagues in the city to do that work. So that's one way we would submit. The second way is you can hire nonprofits or private consulting firms to do that community engagement for you, to bring in that outside expertise as you do with contracts already in your city, such as the ones the council approved a couple weeks ago, and bring in those folks to help you with community engagement and communications or other strategies and tools you might need. The third thing you could do is you could go out to the development community, specifically if it's around new developments, and you could say to the developers, okay, we're going to assess a modest fee, and this isn't a set number, but let's just say $10,000 or $20,000 to do community engagement over the next 2 or 3 years over the life of your project. And during those years, we want you to accomplish 3 overarching goals. And you could say, we want you to have 4 community workshops in which the community shares 15 concrete ideas on how to make development as good as possible, and we want you to hear from at least 100 community members. And we want you to share that information on a publicly accessible website so that the community can see and track all the ideas that they put forward and where you responded and what you think can be done about those ideas. And so we want you to figure out how to do that community engagement in whichever way you want to, but those are the overarching goals. So those are the 3 ways we think the City of Santa Clara could be looking at community engagement around development in the years ahead. And we're happy to answer any questions. I'll be here in the back if you want to call upon me for anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Next, we have Dan Ondrzek, followed by Kirk Barton. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, City staff. My name's Dan Ondrzek. I'm with Reclaiming Our Downtown, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but we are approaching our 4th birthday. It's been 4 years, which is amazing. On behalf of this group, I just want to thank each and every one of you, Council, Debbie, Teresa, Kathy, staff, planning. We've had incredible momentum over these last couple of years in not just building a downtown, but an amazing downtown. We've got a downtown task force that's just, kick tail, I won't use the word, keeping it G. An amazing group of urban planners with David Sargent and WRT. And we're looking forward to the precise plan. We've also been out there surveying, and it is a priority meeting, and what's priority to the citizens. Our unofficial surveys are that 80% of the citizenry wants this downtown over everything else, and we appreciate all your efforts in getting this done. We're morphing. We've got the DCTF now. They're doing a lot of the heavy lifting. We're not turning back on community outreach and advocacy, but we're trying to find ways to meet the goals of the community and assist the city and DCTF in specifically the return of the street grid, which keeps coming up over and over and over as far as the original street grid for the downtown. David Sargent is one of the urban planners, and he said in the last meeting that the downtown Santa Clara street grid reminded him of the beauty of Savannah, Georgia. And we just think it's, compared to the other cities around the Bay Area, it's just amazing. But there are obstacles, major ones, standing in the way of the street grid that could prevent the urban planner from bringing this dream back. And therefore, we respectfully ask that the city prioritizes city management to restart conversations with the executive officers of the Superior Court to explore ways to relocate the courthouse built on Main Street in the 80s. So that's our first request. Within our core, we have a team focused on downtowns with thriving retail, and this is point 2. In speaking with not just city managers and Chamber of Commerce, but the retailers, going out and talking to the restaurant owners of Campbell, Los Gatos, Mountain View, we have found that the key to a 14-hour downtown, to a lunch downtown, not just dinner bar, a 4-hour downtown, is offices and the access within 5 to 10 minutes of those office workers being able to get to lunch. So we respectfully ask that the city prioritizes discussions on how to effectively reconnect Benton to Brokaw at the tracks to connect the over 7,000 workers that are currently on Coleman, and I think there's more to come, to both the downtown but also the train station, which would take, we estimate, about 10 million car trips a year off the streets of not only Coleman, but those areas around Coleman. At first glance, it's a nightmare. It's cost prohibitive. We've heard 50 million, we've heard 100 million, but we're go-getters, and we've called Washington, and there's money available. So we've talked to DOT, we've talked to RIF, or FRA, I get these acronyms mixed up, FTA, and there are numerous grants and loans available right now, but the city has to want it. Santa Clara has to say, we want this connection, and from there, groups like us can help facilitate these meetings with these people we've talked to. So those are the 2 things that I wanted to talk about. I know there's other members that are going to be talking here in the next day or so, but we appreciate all you guys have done. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Dan. Next, we have Kirk Barton, followed by Deborah Von Hune.
Good afternoon again. So I really appreciate the fact that you allow multiple times for the public to engage. It's so we don't have to jam a whole bunch of information at one time and overwhelm. So I'm going to just take a couple reflection points. I appreciate seeing placemaking is something that is now top of mind in discussion. It's not like an odd thing that we're talking about. It's now embedded in discussions for development, and I just really appreciate that that's continuing. I hope you continue to apply pressure on the development community and yourselves to always keep that forefront to create great places for people. I saw something in Berkeley I thought was really interesting. They have in their public comments, they can call out to the crowd. If they're running out of time, they say, hey, can someone give me a minute? And they'll actually I'll give you a minute, and they can throw out time for people to continue their thought so they're not cut off right at the end. Don't know if that would extend our meetings incredibly long, but it's something I think is really interesting.
Your time's up. No.
Can I get a minute? Can I get a minute? No? Okay. Thank you. I'll take the minute.
Add more time.
Wrap it up.
Sorry.
The other thing I thought might be interesting to think about is how can social media help the engagement process? So we do that at Catalyze SV. We try and always live stream things and allow for comments and respond to those. So is it possible to have some kind of social media element or some kind of online element to allow remote people that can't make it and stay in a council meeting as much as you guys do, and some of us others do, to participate and still give comment on agenda items or even public comment to participate, whether Skype, a lot of technology, center of what's possible. So I hope that's something that we can look at in the future. And just to close, there are a couple things that you mentioned in the first session about a market analysis for retail and businesses. That's actually something that the funding that you've already provided will hopefully go towards, is doing an inventory of the businesses here in Santa Clara to find out what areas, working with the chamber, to find out what areas are, what technology areas, what retail areas, how old they are, and really inventory what Santa Clara has as a small business. You talked about gyms. Snap Fitness, right around the corner in Santa Clara, they're looking to convert to a worker co-op, and they're in the process of doing it right now. So Santa Clara might have literally the two, soon two worker co-ops in the South Bay. Also, just wanted to report that we're working with Mission College on programs to help businesses that want to convert, or any businesses that want to get more financial chops with their employees, whether it's accounting, governance. And then they even talked about, when we met, because Nick and Nihal from Mission convened a meeting with Robin and the city manager's office to talk about not just that, but also creating maybe programs specifically to small business, maybe at a cohort level or something like that, targeted on what they need to convert and survive. And then the business processes to maneuver in terms of how does the city deal with small business and helping them create and get through that process. That's hopefully something that'll come out of this initiative that you're funding with the Democracy at Work Institute. And they do change agencies in cities to help them understand what their capacity is, what they need, and how they can support the small businesses to navigate it, to make it easy and understandable. So those are all of my comments. Thank you so much for hosting us and letting the public engage so much.
Next, Deborah Von Hune, and then I don't have any cards after that. If you'd like to come up after Deborah, if you have something to say. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you, and I'll try to not talk too long because I'm standing in between you and lunch, I think. I just want to say how much I appreciate everyone's commitment to an art program in Santa Clara. I do really think that art has been proven to not only be an economic driver, but also an economic multiplier, so that often it can end up paying for itself if there's a temporary investment in generating an arts program. I also think that an arts program really belongs in the economic development department that we don't have right now. Something like an Office of Arts and Culture that was a city department, I think, would be not only more comprehensive, but have the authority and the access to funding and grants that could help really develop Santa Clara as the center of an arts community in the South Bay. I also think that a clear policy direction would be important, a master plan would be important, and whether it's TOT money or an arts impact fee. And by the way, Suds, thanks for starting the day out talking about an arts impact fee. We need to find a way to create this kind of commitment to the arts. Also, as far as placemaking goes, all these new developments are great opportunities to bring interactive art, such as something that we had at the Santa Clara University this past year, which was an interactive art piece that drew a lot of people, and because it was created by recycled water bottles, was able to spark a civic conversation about another one of the goals is sustainability. So there's a huge opportunity here. We're a growing city, and I just want to make sure that we don't let the door close before we include art in every conversation that we have. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, please come forward.
I want to continue to impress upon you the seriousness of the climate crisis. 2014 was the hottest year on record. Then 2015 was the hottest year. Then 2016 was the hottest year. This last year, 2019, was the second hottest year on record. Australia is burning, and the season there is just starting. BlackRock is the world's largest asset manager with nearly $7 trillion in investments. Larry Fink, the founder and chief executive of BlackRock, announced this month that his firm would make investment decisions with environmental sustainability as a core goal. I want to agree with Mary that the city should prioritize the purchase of Franklin Street. And then over and over, I hear that housing and traffic are serious concerns. Last night, at the Planning Commission meeting, Alexander Abbey gave a great presentation on over 14 new state housing laws that basically take away local impediments to building more affordable housing. One example is AB 881, which is an update on the recent ADU laws. This law now allows 2 ADUs on a property with no minimum lot size nor any lot coverage requirements. The ADU height limit is raised from 14 feet to 16 feet, and the setbacks are reduced to 4 feet on all sides. Also, if someone puts an ADU in their garage, they are no longer required to replace the lost parking. Santa Clara should take a bow since we are ahead of most other cities in meeting our regional housing targets under RENA. We could do more by changing our zoning laws to support more micro-units and also move to form-based codes. So as far as traffic is concerned, we should have traffic impact fees. The traffic expert that presented to the Planning Commission says that the TDM requirements in the city fall far short of neighboring cities. We should have TDM penalties. The city should encourage a TMA, Transportation Management Agency, to allow businesses to band together to share shuttles. We should have more traffic light synchronizations. We should have intelligent traffic lights so you're not sitting there waiting for nobody to cross. Data collection for traffic flows and wait times, and we should embrace IoT. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public? Please come forward. Hello.
Thank you for allowing me to speak again. One of the things I'd like to bring up is the arts. And I understand that Vanguard is putting out a request. They want to expand, and they're looking for a partner to expand the arts. So they're going to go into theater and other forms of entertainment, and they want the schools to be involved. I have recommended they speak with Butch Coyne from the university, but if the city is still interested, the meeting has not been set up. So that's one thing I'd like to say. The other thing is the hardest thing for me is I belong to two groups and I cannot be political. And I am a very political person. And so to keep my mouth shut about politics is like I'm almost at the hospital having a heart attack. But I do have to say one thing. I would like to say the importance of selecting for the vacant city council spot. We need to select somebody immediately for that spot. And I'll tell you why. There's a lot of things happening with reclaiming our downtown and throughout the city, but especially reclaiming our downtown, which is my heart. And we need to have somebody that's not biased, that can speak on behalf of a downtown, and that is very pro-downtown. We need that now more than ever. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else? City Clerk.
I remembered to turn it on. I would encourage Mary and those who want to give feedback on that at the February 11th council meeting. We will be discussing options for filling the vacancy for council seat number 5. So I would encourage you to come and share the thoughts that you have shared with regards to council seat 5 vacancy at the February 11th council meeting.
I don't have any other public presentations, Dr. Spano.
Okay, we are adjourning to lunch at 12:30, and can we do 30 minutes? Does that work? And reconvene at 1 o'clock? Let's reconvene at 1 o'clock, and we will move on to goal pillar number 4.